Chapter 755. Spread the family? The soul clone was speechless. This matter was much bigger than he had imagined. But then again, it made sense. Not to mention the imperial family. Even ordinary clans valued the inheritance of their heirs very much. Now that he was the emperor, he didn't have a son. If something happened to him, wouldn't he have no one to inherit the throne? Although there were still many members of the imperial family in the Thunderblaze dynasty, it was inevitable that fierce internal strife would erupt and cause instability. This was definitely not something Mo Linhui and the other officials wanted to see. Thus, the matter of taking in concubines couldn't be delayed any longer. The soul clone didn't expect that he would be forced to take in concubines when he only wanted to be a proper emperor. It was truly difficult. However, the soul clone also understood that there would be various factions behind the concubines. Being chosen as a concubine by him, the new emperor definitely wouldn't be low in status in the future. Then, this concubine's family would become relatives of the imperial family and would naturally soar in status. From another perspective, the soul clone could also use this method to nurture some of his trusted officials. It was a win-win situation. Minister Mo's words are very true. This old official has also found a few women for your majesty. Your majesty can summon them. After saying this, Mo Linhui took out a list of names. The soul clone smiled faintly and said, "It seems Minister Mo came prepared. Is this old official's duty to solve your majesty's problems?" Mo Linhui bowed deeply. The soul clone looked down and instantly saw a special name on the list. Mo Ilu. He and Mo Ilu could be said to have met once. When Lung Shiqi first arrived in the imperial capital, he went to participate in the Celestial Treasures Enterprises auction. It was at that auction that he obtained the wondrous fish and water joy technique, which replenished all of his spiritual cavities. He also met his senior sister Sulwan. However, because of this, he inexplicably offended this Mo Ilu. It was said that she was the woman with the best cultivation talent in the imperial capital. At the same time, her more important identity was Minister Mo's youngest daughter. The soul avatar cast a deep glance at Mo Linhui. This Mo Xianghua could be considered an elder of 3 dynasties. Now, he was only below one person and above tens of thousands of people. Yet, he still wanted to be his father-in-law. Was he still not satisfied? Mo Linhui, on the other hand, looked straight into the eyes of the soul doppelganger, his entire body exuding a magnanimous aura. A thought flashed through the soul avatar's mind. He pondered for a moment and said, "Although the matter of me taking a concubine is my private matter, if we can use it, it might have a good effect." Mo Linhui's heart was as clear as a mirror. He knew that the emperor in front of him was very different from before he ascended the throne. He looked rough on the outside, but he was very careful on the inside. He said, "Your Majesty must have other ideas. This old subject is all ears. I once said that other than the dragon ranking, I will also set up a phoenix dance ranking to list all the beauties in the world. Minister Mo, do you think this beauty on the phoenix dance list is qualified to become my concubine?" The soul avatar first threw out a question. Mo Linhui stood there with rapt attention and did not speak for a moment. The phoenix dance list was purely based on appearance. But if one wanted to become an imperial concubine, not only did they need to have a peerless appearance, they also needed to have a deep background, talent, or outstanding talent. No matter what, they had to have a few of these. Other than that, the most important thing was to have a clean background. To be able to be chosen to become an imperial concubine in the palace, the next few generations had to be investigated clearly. Not even the slightest bit of stain could be allowed. Therefore, Mo Linhui definitely did not agree with the soul avatar's words, but he did not refute it. Seeing Mo Linhui's silence, the soul avatar continued, "The women that Minister Mo gave me are all daughters of courtiers. I believe that since these women can enter Minister Mo's eyes, there is naturally no problem. However, I also want to choose a few women from the Spirit Cultivator sect this time." After he finished speaking, Mo Linhui was shocked. Right now, the Thunderflame dynasty and the Spirit Cultivator sect were like fire and water. In other words, They wanted to take advantage of the first spirit cultivator assembly to ease the tension and break the relationship and trust between the sections. If there really were women from the spirit cultivator sect who entered the palace, if something went wrong, it would be terrible. However, when Mo Linhui thought about how His Majesty had first mentioned the Phoenix Dance list, he immediately understood the meaning of the soul avatar. His eyes lit up. This old subject understands. Your Majesty wants to use the name of selecting concubines to set up the Phoenix Dance list, and then choose a suitable candidate to enter the palace. In this way, the Spirit Cultivator sect and the imperial family will become in-laws, and the relationship will naturally ease. Not only that, my dear minister, you can think about it. Once a certain Spirit Cultivator sect marries me, how will they get along with the other powers? Gradually, this sect will only belong to the imperial family and become my vassal. This matter will be handed over to Minister Mo to handle. I believe in you. Mo Linhui shouted, Your Majesty is wise, and immediately received the order and left. At this time, Lung Shiqi had already returned to the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards. During this period of time, he had announced that he was in seclusion and did not allow anyone to disturb him, so no one knew that he had actually gone to Donglin County for a stroll. As the participants of the second round of the first Spirit Cultivator Conference arrived at the imperial capital one after another, Lung Shiqi finally came out of seclusion and began to take over everything. At this moment, Lung Shiqi was looking at a piece of information. The people inside were all on the list of those who had entered the second round, and there were only about 1,000 of them. In theory, the 36 provinces of the Thunderfire dynasty had 40 spots, but there weren't many Sky Origin Stage experts competing for the Divine Dragon ranking. In fact, there weren't even 10 people from each province. Naturally, there were a few people who directly entered the second round. This wasn't because there were too few Sky Origin Stage experts in the Thunderfire dynasty, but mainly because the Spirit Cultivator sect had barged into the Imperial Palace a while ago. They were afraid that the first Spirit Cultivator Conference was a trap set up for the Sky Origin Stage experts, so the Sky Origin Stage experts of the various sects didn't come. Of course, there was an exception, and that was the Hall Master of the Ultimate Saber Hall, Fu Yingxi. This person knew that there was a tiger in the mountain, but he still went to the mountain. However, in the eyes of the other sects, this was also good. At least there were people who went to investigate the background of the Thunderfire dynasty. Other than him, most of the Sky Origin Stage experts who came to the Imperial Capital to participate in the first Spirit Cultivator Conference were actually rogue cultivators. There were also a few veteran experts who had been in seclusion for a long time. It seemed that being in seclusion couldn't hide their desire for fame. Perhaps the closer one's lifespan was to the end, the more some people cared about being famous for eternity. In addition, there were more than 10 experts from the Starfall Dynasty, Northern Wei Dynasty, and the 6 kingdoms of the Western region. All the Sky Origin Stage experts added up to less than 100 people. Of course, it was rare to be able to gather so many Sky Origin Stage experts. Even if he could only look at them from afar, he would be satisfied with his life. Suddenly, the corner of Lung Shiqi's eyes twitched. He actually saw a familiar yet unfamiliar name at the end of the list. Western Desolate Province's rogue cultivator, Chu Hejing. Chapter 756. Seeing the name Chu Hejing, Lung Shiqi's eyes lit up. Chu Hejing was the master of his current identity. He was also his master in the Blood Row Pavilion, Wu Xiang. When he was refining the Scarlet Gold Earth Dragon Flame in the Bloodcloth Pavilion, Inkfrost Ghostman had hinted to him that Wu Xiang might break through to the Sky Origin realm. If this Chu Hejing on the list was Wu Xiang, then it meant that he had successfully broken through. To be honest, Lung Shiqi had some feelings for his master, Wu Xiang. The two of them did not interact much, but Wu Xiang had saved Lung Shiqi's life in the Southern God Peak. Just this point alone was enough to make Lung Shiqi feel grateful. Lung Shiqi was happy that Wu Xiang could break through to the Sky Origin realm. Furthermore, Wu Xiang's path was similar to Lung Shiqi's. They both learn a lot. Since Wu Xiang had broken through to the Sky Origin Realm, he could impart some experience to him. It could also be said that Lung Shiqi had been preparing for the Sky Origin Realm since now. Ever since he broke through to the unity of heaven and man realm, he had directly reached the middle stage. Furthermore, he had already grasped a trace of the laws of heaven and earth. It was easy for him to continue communicating with more elemental powers. Therefore, he did not have any bottlenecks in the unity of heaven and man realm. As long as he had enough time, he could quickly cultivate to the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm. He estimated that this process would take at least a few years. If it was someone else, it would be impossible to cultivate from the middle stage of the unity of heaven and man realm to the peak in a few years. Even cultivating from the early stage of the unity of heaven and man realm to the middle stage was not enough. In the unity of heaven and man realm, it was no longer just about absorbing spirit energy. It was about comprehending the heaven and earth. This was a mysterious and profound process that took a long time to progress. It was impossible to achieve in one step. Fortunately, the lifespan of a cultivator in the unity of heaven and man realm was extended by a lot. If others knew that Lung Shiqi could cultivate to the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm in a few years, they would definitely not believe it. But in reality, not only could Lung Shiqi do it, he even felt that it was too slow. In the eyes of others, they would think that he was crazy. However, Lung Shiqi felt that a few years was too long. Don't forget that it had only been a few years since he left the Blood Mist Island. Who would have thought that he, who was only at the spirit transformation realm, would reach the middle stage of the unity of heaven realm? Not to mention that his peak battle strength was comparable to a heavenly origin realm cultivator. This kind of thing shouldn't have happened, but he had done it. Lung Shiqi also began to prepare some treasures that could help in communicating with the power of the elements. With his current status, he already had some ideas. As long as he had the help of the treasures of heaven and earth, his cultivation speed to the peak of oneness of heaven and man would only be faster. Therefore, it was time for him to prepare for breaking through to the Sky Origin stage. Everyone had a different way of breaking through to the Sky Origin stage, because everyone had a different path. However, the experience passed down from generation to generation was valuable. For example, the Ink Frost Ghostly Man had given him the experience of breaking through from the experts of the Blood Garment Pavilion. However, compared to Wu Xiang was definitely more suitable for him. After that, Lung Shiqi continued to look at the list of people who had come to the imperial capital. He also saw Tang Wanqiu's name. Now that the Tang clan had been destroyed, most of the Tang clan's members had been killed by their enemies. However, Tang Wanqiu had escaped in advance and left Donglin County at full speed. That was how she had escaped. She had simply come to the imperial capital to completely bid farewell to her past. In addition to her, Lung Shiqi also saw Black Flame Heavenly Sovereign's adopted daughter, Lian Yi. Lian Yi had been unexpectedly capable recently. She had been constantly accepting missions. Her ability and strength had improved by leaps and bounds. She was already at the late stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. This time, no one had opened the back door for her. She had relied on her own ability to obtain a spot. Lung Shiqi still had some expectations for her growth. On the list, there was also Bing Shang from the Blood Garment Pavilion, who was worthy of his attention. According to the information, Bing Shang's cultivation was at the peak of the Spirit Aperture realm. It was very likely that she would make it to the Wandering Dragon list. In addition, there were also several people from the Blood Garment Pavilion. Although the Blood Garment Pavilion had tacitly agreed not to participate in such a grand event in the past, this time it was held by the Thunder Flame Dynasty. The Thunder Flame Dynasty had invited all the spirit cultivators in the world and had even sent invitations to all the major sections. The Blood Garment Pavilion was one of them, so the other forces had nothing to say. The world's first spirit cultivator assembly was also a good opportunity for the Blood Garment Pavilion to completely appear in front of everyone. As for Delta Orgi, Yushu, and the others, they were still from the elite society. They were not on the list. This was because their cultivation was at the spirit astral realm, and Lung Shiqi had set up the Flying Dragon list to include the spirit astral realm and the oneness of heaven and man realm. This was very unfair to the spirit astral realm. They did not have the strength to fight against the oneness of heaven and man realm experts. At first, many spirit cultivators were dissatisfied and were shouting why the spirit astral realm was not listed separately. In fact, this was also deliberately done by Lung Shiqi. First of all, the spirit astral realm was a realm that was neither high nor low. Although it was considered an expert, it did not have much ruling power. More importantly, most of the members of the underworld Lung Shiqi were at the spirit astral realm. He did not want the people of the underworld to be exposed to the public. Lung Shiqi firmly believed that all the members of the underworld were favored by the heavens. In addition, he had obtained the inheritance of the underworld. He was not boasting. If the spirit astral realm was listed separately, the people of the underworld would probably be listed on the dragon list. This was a great opportunity to become famous, but once you were listed on the dragon list, most of your information would be leaked and your whereabouts would be noticed. Instead, you would be restrained. Moreover, the people of the underworld had multiple identities and could not be investigated. If there were any clues, the consequences would be unimaginable. Speaking of the underworld, Lung Shiqi had already completed 2 of the conditions for the underworld to be upgraded again. Now, he only needed to recruit a member of the 10 halls at the level of Yama before the underworld could continue to be upgraded. Now, the candidates he was looking for were Wu Diao, Di Chuan, Bing Shang, and Lian Yi. The talents of these 4 people were still slightly inferior to those of the Delta Orgi. Wu Diao and Di Chuan were a little older than them. As for Bing Shang and Lian Yi, their cultivation progress was a little slow. Of course, this was relative to the level of the Delta Orgi, so Lung Shiqi was still a little uncertain. Putting down the list, Lung Shiqi closed his eyes and went through all the important things to pay attention to in the second round. Finally, he opened his eyes, which were shining brightly. "Come in." He Feichin immediately pushed the door open and entered. "Sir," Lung Shiqi said, "pass down the order that all the preparations for the second round of the World First Spiritual Cultivator Conference must be arranged properly. It will begin in 3 days." "Yes, sir." Chapter 757. In recent days, the imperial capital had been unusually lively, even more so than Lei Chengjuan's birthday banquet. The number of people who could participate in the second round of the First Spirit Cultivator Conference was actually not many. There were only a little over 1,000 people, but the attention these people brought was simply too high. It could be said that it was unprecedentedly high. In order to witness the First Spirit Cultivator Conference, there were even more people who came to witness it. This was a grand event that the Thunderfire dynasty had never seen in many years. At this time, the imperial capital could be said to be packed. The First Spirit Cultivator Conference was already lively enough, but the Heavenly Dynasty suddenly announced that they were going to set up the Phoenix Dance Roll to include all the peerless beauties in the world. When this news came out, it was like a heavy bomb had been thrown into the water. Who didn't love beauties in the world? If the Phoenix Dance Roll listed all the beauties in the world, even ordinary people would have the chance to see a beauty. That was a great blessing. Moreover, all the beautiful women went crazy. The Phoenix Dance Roll did not compare one's background or cultivation, but only their beauty. There was no lack of other things in this world, but there were countless women who thought that their beauty was unparalleled. When the news of the Phoenix Dance Roll came out, there was a large number of women who wanted to sign up. The scene was even more spectacular than a registration for the First Spirit Cultivator Conference. Because beauties were naturally surrounded by a large number of suitors, and there were even more people who wanted to feast their eyes, there were more men than women who signed up. Everyone thought that the Thunderfire dynasty setting up the Dragon Roll and Phoenix Dance Roll at the same time was already grand enough, but they never thought that another imperial decree would be passed down. The current emperor of the Thunderfire dynasty was going to choose a concubine from the Phoenix Dance Roll. This was simply a great opportunity to reach the heavens in a single step, to become a phoenix from a branch. Not only were there many women who almost fainted from madness, but there were also many disciples of large factions, women from large families, and even many women from top sects who were scrambling like ducks. However, the upper echelons of the various large factions were doing their best to restrain their disciples, because they could all see that this was a trap. The Phoenix Dance rankings had clearly pushed numerous peerless beauties to the heart of the struggle. They could imagine how many young geniuses would fight over the favor of those beauties in the future. It would also lead to countless conflicts and struggles. As for becoming an imperial concubine, it meant that the faction had sided with the Thunderfire dynasty and would definitely be viewed as an enemy by other sections. In the end, they could only rely on the Thunderfire dynasty. What price did the Thunderfire dynasty pay? He didn't have to pay anything, but instead, he got a few beauties and a sect. This was really a good deal. Those who could see through this were all admiring the methods of the Thunderblaze dynasty. However, the women did not care at all. What they wanted was to be the most beautiful woman in the world. They did not care about such things. Thus, these 2 days, the imperial capital was unprecedentedly lively. Several grand events were held at the same time, and the lively atmosphere almost ignited the air. On the 3rd day, the atmosphere had reached its peak because the world's first Spirit Cultivator Conference was about to begin. The location of the Spirit Cultivator of each realm was also different. The low-level Spirit Cultivator below the 4 realms of heaven were all in the outer city, and all of them were the most outstanding young disciples of this generation in the various provinces. Most of them were at the 9th layer of the Spirit Transformation realm, and many of them were half a step into the Spirit Pulse realm. There were even some who purposely suppressed their cultivation to prevent themselves from breaking through to the Spirit Pulse realm in order to obtain a spot on the Hidden Dragon ranking and become famous. At this time, there were already 10 huge arenas set up in the Outer Cities arena. Each arena had a barrier, and there were experts at the Spirit Aperture realm overseeing them to prevent any accidents from happening. Those who were able to reach this stage were all genius disciples. Of course, they could not have their lives in danger. Otherwise, it would be difficult to explain to the Spirit Cultivator sect. There were only about 300 Spirit Cultivators in the 2nd round, so they were divided into 2 matches. The winner would advance, and the loser would leave until the final 108 people were chosen. After that, there was another round of challenges. These 108 people could challenge each other, and the more victories they had, the higher their ranking would be. At this time, there were already countless people gathered in the outer city to watch the battle. There were also many people nearby who had opened a bet and were opportunistic. The Spirit Aperture Realms arena was in the inner city, and the rules were the same as before. The unity of heaven and man realm did not allow outsiders to watch the battle. It was not because of any other reason, but because the destructive power of the unity of heaven and man realm was very strong. Even if they used formations, they could not guarantee that there would be no accidents. Thus, they decided to let these people fight in a separate space. That place was the minor 5 elements chaos paradise. Previously, after Lung Shichi had accidentally damaged it, the Thunderblaze dynasty had repaired it. Now, it could be put to good use again, allowing these Unity of Heaven Realm experts to display their prowess in battle. Because of this, others could not watch the battle. As for the Sky Origin Realm experts' battle method, it was even more special. There were more than 100 Sky Origin Realm experts participating in the battle. If they were allowed to fight continuously, the Imperial capital would probably be destroyed by them. Thus, the Sky Origin Realm experts all used mental projections to fight. The Thunderblaze dynasty set up a formation, and the 2 sides fighting would enter as mental projections. The formation could create a battle strength similar to the original body, and this method would determine the victor. The most important thing in the Sky Origin Realm was the comprehension of the origin energy of heaven and earth. This method could also fully display their abilities, so no one had any objections. At this moment, Lung Shichi was standing in the minor 5 elements chaos paradise as the disciple of the Wave Island Sword Monarch. Outside the secret realm, there was also a Lung Shichi monitoring the battle between the Sky Origin Realm experts. As for the one outside, it was just a projection of Lung Shichi. As long as he did not make a move and did not speak carelessly, nothing would happen. Lung Shichi looked around and saw that the minor 5 elements chaos paradise was very different from the last time. This time, it was not divided into the 5 elements region. Instead, it was divided into 10 huge regions, each of which was gray and hazy. These 10 areas were equivalent to 10 arenas, and each time, 10 battles would be held at the same time. There were more than 350 Sky Origin Realm experts around Lung Shichi. Originally, there should be 360 of them, but there were some people who were unable to participate due to special circumstances, such as Tang Haoquang and the others. Lung Shichi looked around and saw that he was the only one who was in the middle stage of Sky Origin Realm. Other than him, 60% of them were in the late stage of Sky Origin Realm, and 40% were in the peak stage of Sky Origin Realm. This minor 5 elements chaos paradise was different. Even if they did not make a move, everyone had gathered more or less energy around them, and only he had the least. Thus, Lung Shichi attracted the attention of many people. At this moment, the Dark Thunder Guard's commander, Heavenly Venerable Black Flame, and the Discipline Commission's commander, Monarch Cloud Shuttle, appeared at the same time. They said straightforwardly, "Since everyone is here, let's begin." Everyone's breathing froze. The world's #1 Spirit Cultivator Conference, which was the focus of everyone's attention, had finally begun. Chapter 758. Monarch Cloud Shuttle flicked his finger, and wisps of clouds spread out, covering the 10 regions. 2 names appeared in each region, and those were the names of the people who were about to fight. Lung Shichi looked up and saw his name. He muttered, "It's my turn so soon." Then he walked straight to the region in the distance. At the same time, everyone's eyes fell on him. This person is only at the middle stage of the unity of heaven and man realm. Immediately, many people were doubtful. He is indeed at the middle stage of the unity of heaven and man realm. Looking at his young age, it's rare for him to be at this stage. I wonder which county he came from. To be able to come to the imperial capital at the middle stage of the unity of heaven and man realm, it's either that county has no one, or this person's strength is outstanding and comparable to the late stage. I'm looking forward to it. Hearing the discussion, Chong Fengyu, Huang Shiwan, and the others from Donglin County sneered. They knew best that this Lung Shichi was only in his 20s. His combat strength was close to the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm. It was far beyond everyone's imagination. However, they did not say anything. They wanted to see the shocked expressions of others, just like how they were before. Lung Shichi's opponent was called Meng Xian. Others might not know the details of others, but Lung Shichi, as one of the 4 chiefs of the First Spirit Cultivator Conference, naturally knew everything. He instantly recalled all the information about Meng Xian. This person came from the Chenghuan County in the northern part of the Thunderblaze dynasty. He was an elder of a first-rate sect and had a cultivation at the late stage of the unity of heaven and man realm. This was Meng Xian's best saber technique, and he had a 7th-tier saber in his hand. His strength was not ordinary. Lung Shichi stepped lightly and arrived at the center of the region, waiting with his head held high. Meng Xian was a thin person who looked very capable. He walked over step by step, and a biting cold saber intent soared into the air and locked onto Lung Shichi. Lung Shichi smiled brightly, revealing his white teeth. "Junior Lung Shichi, please enlighten me." Meng Xian did not underestimate his opponent. He was very clear that those who could come to the imperial capital were definitely not weaklings. The fact that this young man in front of him could stand here with the cultivation of the middle stage of the unity of heaven and man realm meant that he definitely had something outstanding about him. He clenched his fist, and a crescent blade that carried the aura of Miyuan appeared. The blade's aura soared into the sky, and its aura reached the rainbow. On the other hand, Lung Shiqi still took out his level 5 spiritual sword, which looked extremely shabby in front of his opponent's level 7 precious weapon. Meng Xian's face darkened as well, and he said with dissatisfaction, "Aren't you looking down on us too much?" Lung Shiqi shrugged and said, "Senior, please don't misunderstand. I'm very poor and only have this much spiritual energy. Please don't blame me." That's enough. Hurry up and start." Meng Xian was a little impatient. He waved his hand and said, "I'm not bullying you because your cultivation is low. I'll let you make the first move." "Really?" Lung Shiqi raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Of course. Then this junior will respectfully accept." Lung Shiqi cupped his hands, and then the blade of his sword trembled. A terrifying sword intent soared into the sky, stirring up the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. In an instant, the void froze, and the sky and earth were enveloped by endless sword intent. The sword intent turned into a huge shadow. The shadow stepped forward with the sword, as if it had merged with heaven and earth. This was the true unity of heaven and man. Lung Shiqi's first move was a sword immortal. As soon as the sword immortal appeared, the space in the entire area trembled slightly, as if even the void was about to shatter. Meng Xian's expression became very stiff. He never dreamed that Lung Shiqi's first move would be such a powerful attack. It was so powerful that he didn't have any confidence in receiving it. The reason why he let Lung Shiqi make the first move was not that he underestimated Lung Shiqi, but that he wanted to see Lung Shiqi's moves first. Who would have thought that he would be in danger before he could see his moves? Meng Xian's saber moved, and endless wood energy rose. The saber's momentum cut through the void, as if it had the power of 10,000 caddies. However, this saber was nothing in front of the Sword Immortal. In just one exchange, the Sword Immortal's shadow directly shattered Meng Xian's saber momentum. The remaining force did not decrease as it pointed its sword at Meng Xian's dantian. At this moment, Meng Xian's expression finally changed drastically. Even though that slash earlier wasn't his trump card, he had fully unleashed the strength of the advanced stage of the unity of heaven and man realm. How could it be as weak as paper? Unfortunately, it was too late for him to counterattack. There were only two things he could do. One was to resist with all his might, and the other was to admit defeat. Meng Xian did not hesitate to shout loudly, "I admit defeat." After he shouted these three words, Lung Shiqi's sword style changed. The Sword Immortal's shadow suddenly disappeared, and the sword intent that filled the sky also dissipated as if it had never appeared. Meng Xian could not help but feel relieved. Just now, he actually felt a trace of threat to his life. However, at the same time, his old face turned red. His cultivation was clearly higher than his opponent's, but he had been defeated so quickly. He had lost all his face. Meng Xian looked around and saw that there were indeed a lot of eyes watching him and Lung Shiqi. He coughed awkwardly a few times and left dejectedly. In fact, those people were basically looking at Lung Shiqi. Everyone's eyes were more or less filled with surprise. Lung Shiqi's sword immortal was extremely stunning. Some of the people present were also sword cultivators. They were the most shocked because they could see that Lung Shiqi's attainments in the sword Dao had even exceeded his own realm. This meant that Lung Shiqi's future cultivation path would be smooth sailing without too many bottlenecks. This alone was enough to make many people envious. He defeated Meng Xian in one move. This person's strength is probably stronger than many late-stage unity of heaven and man realm cultivators. Late stage? Even those at the peak of unity of heaven and man realm can't do this. Those who can enter the second round are really capable. This person can't be underestimated. A few sword cultivators in the crowd gathered together. Everyone, you all saw it. Sword heart, illuminated, sword intent pure. His sword Dao is very pure. It won't be long before he surpasses me. Which sect is he from? Why haven't I heard of him before? Yes, we have to ask around. At this moment, Heavenly Venerable He Yin said, Lung Shiqi wins. He even looked at Lung Shiqi a few more times. For some reason, he felt like he had seen Lung Shiqi somewhere before. Lung Shiqi cupped his hands at Heavenly Venerable He Yin and walked to the corner of the crowd. Although he had used several secret techniques to hide his aura, he was not sure if he could really avoid Heavenly Venerable He Yin's gaze. It was better to ignore Heavenly Venerable He Yin. Lung Shiqi also knew that although he had easily defeated Meng Xian with his current sword Dao strength, there were no weaklings in the following rounds. At most, he could hold on for 2 more rounds. If he wanted to make it to the Flying Dragon list with only 36 spots, he had to use other methods. Chapter 759. Lung Shiqi was the first to finish his battle. At this time, the other 9 battles had just begun. He quietly watched the battles. There are not many opportunities to watch so many oneness of nature experts fight at the same time. Last time, when he watched the battle between Huang Xuan and Chang Fengyu, he realized something, so he cherished this opportunity even more. There were more than 300 oneness of nature experts present. There would be more than 170 to 80 battles. This was a good opportunity for Lung Shiqi. In the following period of time, rare experts fought one after another. None of the minor chaos paradise remained calm. Everywhere was filled with violent elemental spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was not until late at night that these experts finally finished their battles. Lung Shiqi's eyes were faintly blurred. He had watched all the battles. Because there were 10 battles going on at the same time, he could only spread out his spiritual energy to spread out more than half of the 5 elements chaos paradise. However, this also consumed his spiritual energy very quickly. However, he also gained a lot. The battles of the experts gave him a lot of inspiration and enlightenment. He also had a deeper understanding of the control of the elemental spiritual energy. After 1 round of battles, half of the experts were eliminated. At this moment, there were more than 170 winners. Among them, 80% were at the peak of oneness of nature. It should be known that each of these people was qualified to reach the sky origin stage. They were also absolute leaders in their own sects or forces. Any one of them was a big figure that could shake a region. However, it was very difficult for people of this level to be on the Flying Dragon list. There were only 36 people on the Flying Dragon list. There were nearly 200 people here. Moreover, these people had been in high positions for a long time and were more or less arrogant. It was conceivable that the following battles would only be more intense. At this time, Monarch Cloud Shuttle said, "Today's winners will enter the next round. The battles will start in 2 days. Let's call it day." Heavenly Venerable He Yin formed several hand seals and opened up a huge portal. Everyone immediately left the minor 5 elements chaos paradise. Lung Shiqi was about to sneak back to the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards, but 2 people stopped him. They didn't come over directly, but released a faint killing intent from afar to shroud him. Lung Shiqi glanced at them from the corner of his eyes and found that they were quietly making a few gestures to him. His heart skipped a beat. It was a secret code that only the higher-ups of the Blood Garment Pavilion knew. He recalled that there were indeed 2 experts from the Blood Garment Pavilion participating in this round of battles. They were Green Ghost and 2 Exciant, who were ranked among the 9 great Blood Garment assassins of the Blood Garment Pavilion. Lung Shiqi had specifically looked for these 2 people in the minor 5-element Chaos Grotto Heaven, but there was no one wearing the clothes of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. He also did not find anyone who cultivated the Blood Cloak Pavilion's techniques. However, he vaguely remembered that the 2 people in front of him seemed to have been eliminated. One of them transmitted a message to Lung Shiqi. "Master Lung, I am 2Xant. He is Qing Gui." Master Lung, when I have a lot of history." Qing Gui laughed. Lung Shiqi also remembered that when he had just left the Blood Fog Island, Delta Orgi and the others were all taken in as disciples by the 3 Tianyuan Realm Masters, and he handed them over to the 9 great Blood Garment Assassins. At that time, Qing Gui had tried to fight for him, but he was rejected by Lung Yu. Later, Lung Yu was rejected by Wu Xiang. At that time, Lung Shiqi was still a junior disciple in the spirit transformation realm. Now, Qin Gui had called him Master Lung. It could be seen that Lung Shiqi's growth was rapid. Of course, he was not arrogant. He secretly transmitted a message. So, it's you two senior brothers. This is not the place to talk. Please follow me. After the three of them left the minor chaos paradise, they quickly walked into the streets of the imperial capital. Following Lung Shiqi, they quickly arrived at an extremely secluded place. Lung Shiqi waved his hand and laid down a few layers of restrictive spells. At this moment, Green Ghost and two Xion's appearances changed drastically. In an instant, they turned into the blood-robed pavilion's assassins, clad in blood-red robes and wearing strange masks. The one with the ferocious green ghost on his mask was Qin Gui. He said, "The Blood Garment Pavilion's participation in the World First Spirit Cultivator Conference has already made many forces unhappy. Therefore, we did not make a big fuss about it, nor did we use our full strength. Just treat it as a formality." Hearing this, Lung Shiqi nodded. "I see. May I know why you two senior brothers have called me here?" "Actually, it's not that we want to find you. There's a master who wants to see you." "That's right. Master? Who is it?" Lung Shiqi was puzzled. To be called a master by Qin Gui and two Xian, it was probably only the pavilion master and a few others. But now that the imperial capital was heavily guarded, even a Sky Origin Realm expert would not be able to sneak in. Who could it be? Suddenly, a voice sounded. "Good disciple, don't you want to see your master?" Lung Shiqi raised his eyebrows. He already knew who it was. As expected, the space in front of him distorted. A plump man with a small mustache and a small round hat appeared in front of him. This was the wandering cultivator from the Western Wilderness Province, Chu Hajing. He was also the Blood Garment Pavilion's new Sky Origin Realm expert, Wu Xiang. "Congratulations, Master, for breaking through to the Sky Origin Realm and standing at the peak of the strong." Lung Shiqi immediately congratulated. Wu Xiang stroked his mustache. "Kid, you flatter me. Although the Sky Origin Realm is not weak, there are many people in this world who are stronger than me. What peak of the strong? You're still far from it. I firmly believe that one day, Master, you will reach this level." "Tut, tut. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Your mouth is getting better and better." Wu Xiang smiled and turned his head. "You two go first. I have something to say to this kid." Qin Gui and two Xian bowed and said, "Master Wu Xiang, please. We'll take our leave first." Then they turned and left. Wu Xiang came over and patted Lung Shiqi's shoulder. Lung Shiqi immediately felt a strange power rushing through his body, but he did not resist. "Hiss!" Wu Xiang suddenly withdrew his hand and gasped. "Kid, your strength is so terrifying. I'm afraid you're not weaker than the peak of the oneness of heaven and man realm. With your current strength, it's easy for you to become one of the 9 underworld blood cloak assassins. How did you cultivate?" "To be honest, Master, I actually had another opportunity to obtain a mysterious secret realm. That's why my cultivation progressed so fast." Lung Shiqi looked at Wu Xiang and had another idea in his mind. That was to pull Wu Xiang into the underworld. Wu Xiang was originally the bloody kill duo of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. Now that he had broken through to the Sky Origin Realm, he could definitely obtain the inheritance of the 10 Kings of Hell. Moreover, as Lung Shiqi's master, Wu Xiang was indeed somewhat trustworthy. There was no problem in pulling him into the underworld. "Secret realm?" Wu Xiang's eyes lit up. "No wonder. You're really lucky. No wonder you're my disciple." "Of course. Master, I'll take you to the secret realm to have a look." "Can I?" Wu Xiang was puzzled. In his opinion, the secret realm was not a place that could be entered at will. Lung Shiqi pressed Wu Xiang's arm and said, "Master, don't resist." He first opened the territory system and summoned Wu Xiang into the underworld. Then, with a thought, he disappeared with Wu Xiang. After the two of them entered the underworld, Lung Shiqi stared in the direction of the Fengdu necropolis. As expected, an enormous amount of netherworld energy soared into the sky and enveloped Wu Xiang. Imperial title, Dongyuan Wuxiang Ghost Emperor. Chapter 760. Leng Shiqi was stunned for a moment. He thought that Wuxiang would at least be at the level of the 10 kings of hell. However, Wuxiang had obtained the inheritance of the ghost emperors of 5 directions. This was something that Leng Shiqi did not expect. However, this was still a good thing. Wuxiang had obtained the inheritance of the ghost emperors of 5 directions, so his strength would naturally increase by leaps and bounds. This was also beneficial to Leng Shiqi. While Wuxiang was obtaining the inheritance, he went straight to the end of Fengdu Necropolis. Here, he found the requirements to upgrade the territory. Mansion of the Dead current level, Tier 4. Mansion of the Dead upgrade requirements. 1. Recruit one of the 10 kings of hell, 1/10. 2. Collect 10 high-level souls, 10/10. 3. 80,000 system coins. Upgrade requirements met. Do you want to upgrade? No. Leng Shiqi was not in a hurry to upgrade the Mansion of the Dead. Once it was upgraded, the Mansion of the Dead would automatically close. At the very least, he had to wait until Wuxiang finished receiving the inheritance. The last time a Mansion of the Dead was upgraded, it took 10 days. This time, it would take even longer. If it was in the past, Leng Shiqi could only wait slowly. However, there was a better way now. Leng Shiqi opened the system shop and chose an item, Basic Territory Upgrade Card. This was an item that he was qualified to buy after obtaining all the system privileges. It could be used to shorten the time needed to upgrade the territory. Each Basic Territory Upgrade Card could shorten the time needed to upgrade by 10 days. When it was time to upgrade, he just needed to buy a certain number of upgrade cards, and he could upgrade the Mansion of the Dead directly. Leng Shiqi then went to Wuxiang's side. He estimated that it would not take long for Wuxiang to receive the inheritance. Those who could break through to the ethereal stage definitely had high comprehension. The higher the comprehension, the faster the speed of receiving the inheritance. He stood beside Wuxiang. After about half an hour, the ghostly aura around Wuxiang suddenly dissipated, revealing Wuxiang's body. However, Wuxiang's current state was a little strange. He was clearly standing there, but in Leng Shiqi's eyes, Wuxiang felt illusory. It was as if he did not exist in this space. With a flip of Wuxiang's palm, the spiritual energy in the underworld suddenly erupted, and a terrifying aura suddenly appeared. This aura was like sword intent, saber intent, fist energy, palm energy, finger energy. Leng Shiqi's expression was solemn. He seemed to have felt the all-encompassing power in Wuxiang's hand. The aura of formless was illusory and all-encompassing. This strange feeling made Leng Shiqi very uncomfortable. Wuxiang's heart was filled with shock. He did not conceal his astonishment and said, "Disciple, how did you discover this secret realm? Too mysterious, too powerful, too bizarre." Leng Shiqi could not explain the origin of the underworld, so he changed the topic. "Shurzuan, what kind of inheritance did you receive? Is it a cultivation technique?" "No, it's not a cultivation technique." Wuxiang shook his head and said, "I can't say for sure. Those things were directly imprinted in my mind, as if I already knew them. To be specific, it's a bit like the sword steels in the Sword Dao Mountain." The sword steels of the Sword Dao Mountain. Leng Shiqi had some understanding of this. The Sword Path Mountain was one of the top sects in the 8 Desolates weapon path, and it was located in the Starfall dynasty. This sect was very strange because the Sword Path Mountain was a sword cultivation sect. They only had the inheritance of mental cultivation techniques, but they didn't have any inheritance of sword skills. A top sect that nurtured sword cultivators did not have any sword skills. It sounded unbelievable. There were thousands of sword steels in the Sword Dao Mountain. Each sword steel had a sword mark on it. These sword marks were left behind by the Heaven Origin Stage cultivators of the Sword Dao Mountain. They contained the cultivators' understanding of the Sword Dao. The disciples of the Sword Dao Mountain only learned mental cultivation techniques. If you wanted sword skills, no one would teach you. You could only rely on yourself to comprehend the sword steels and comprehend a sword skill that was suitable for you. Only the Sword Dao Mountain had this method of nurturing disciples in the world, so the strength of the Sword Dao Mountain was fluctuating. Sometimes, there would be several peerless geniuses in the same generation. For example, hundreds of years ago, the Sword Dao Mountain had 5 great sword masters who shocked the world. They were ranked second only to the 4 saint spiritual realms in the world. However, sometimes there might be no genius disciples for several generations, leading to a slow decline. However, the Sword Dao Mountain had never fallen out of the world's sect rankings. It was obvious that their foundation was extremely deep. Wu Xiang actually said that the inheritance he obtained was similar to the sword steels of the Sword Dao Mountain. In other words, the inheritance of the underworld did not directly give him a cultivation technique or spiritual skill. He still had to comprehend it himself. As for what he could comprehend, it would depend on his own ability. Lung Shiqi understood in his heart. Although he had yet to obtain the underworld's inheritance, knowing this gave him a little more confidence. Wu Xiang then threw a jade slip over and said, "This mystic realm is yours. The inheritance is also from you. This is not a small favor. In addition, although I am your master, I have not taught you anything. This jade slip contains my life's knowledge and my experience of breaking through to the heavenly origin realm. Your path is similar to mine, so it should be useful." Lung Shiqi did not stand on ceremony and directly took a few glances. This was something he had always wanted. He casually glanced at it and discovered that the method for Wu Xiang to break through to the heavenly origin realm was actually the returning ruins. Wu Xiang and Lung Shiqi's cultivation path was indeed quite similar. They both learned a variety of things and dabbled in all kinds of spiritual skills. There were very few people who walked this path. After all, everyone understood the principle of being greedy and not proficient. Furthermore, this type of spirit cultivator was very strong in the same realm, but breaking through to the next realm was extremely difficult. The further one went, the more difficult it was. Wu Xiang could also be considered to be extremely talented. Now, he no longer knew any sword or blade techniques. He had already classified all his moves and spiritual techniques into a special kind of power. This power was all-encompassing and impossible to fathom. Lung Shiqi muttered to himself for a moment. In fact, there was one heavenly origin realm expert who walked this path, and that was Li Zhucheng's ancestor. He cultivated the Li family's ancestors' 16 heavens transformations. The Li family's ancestor also learned everything. His method of breaking through to the heavenly origin realm was to use every spiritual skill to the extreme. This was completely different from Wu Xiang's method, but it was still a success. Therefore, everyone's path was different. Lung Shiqi would also walk a path that was completely his own. Lung Shiqi put down the jade scroll. "Master, we have been here for a long time. Let's go out first." "All right, let's go." After the two of them went out, they chatted for a while. Wu Xiang even specifically told Lung Shiqi to wait until the end of the first Spirit Cultivator Conference. After sending Wu Xiang off, Lung Shiqi turned around and returned to the underworld. He opened the territory system and chose to upgrade territory. Upgrading the territory requires 100 natural days. During the upgrade period, you will not be able to use the territory. Do you want to upgrade? Lung Shiqi smiled and immediately exchanged 10 beginner-level territory upgrade cards and chose yes. Chapter 761. Primary Territory Upgrade Card detected. Upgrading the territory requires no time. Do you wish to upgrade? Yes. As soon as Lung Shiqi's voice fell, the entire underworld shook and black gas billowed. He spread out his spiritual power and instantly discovered that the area of the underworld was rapidly expanding. The original buildings were also expanding proportionally. The most peculiar thing was that the entrance to the 6 paths of reincarnation had separated itself from the Fengdu necropolis and opened up a unique small space. The most noteworthy thing was that small spaces had appeared in the newly expanded area of the underworld, layer upon layer, leading to the underground. A name was imprinted in Lung Shiqi's mind. 18 levels of hell. Lung Shiqi was deep in the underworld. The surrounding time seemed to have sped up countless times. Everything was changing at an unimaginable speed. Soon, the movements in the underworld suddenly stopped. He immediately saw a system prompt. Territory upgrade successful. Lung Shiqi immediately looked through the territory system. In the past, he would obtain some abilities every time the underworld was upgraded. After the last upgrade, he could move freely in the underworld. He also had the convenient ability of the Netherlamp illusion. This time, he obtained the ability of the underworld's gate. Lung Shiqi's eyes lit up. This gate of the underworld could finally directly increase his combat power. The gate of the underworld had two uses. One was to allow Lung Shiqi to use a portion of the underworld's power, which could be considered as a means to increase his combat power. The second was to summon the gate of the underworld. When the gate of the underworld appeared, the gate of hell opened, and the surrounding hundreds of miles would become hell. According to the rank of spiritual skills, the gate of the underworld was definitely comparable to a rank 8 spiritual skill, or even higher. This time, the underworld's upgrade finally had the ability to fight. This surprised Lung Shiqi. Moreover, the gate of the underworld was a new ability he had obtained. It could be used in his new identity as the disciple of the Wave Sword Monarch. With his swordsmanship alone, he could at most survive the next round of the World First Spiritual Cultivator Conference. If he could use the power of the underworld, it would naturally be very different. There was still a chance for him to enter the Flying Dragon list. However, there was no way such extreme energy could have come from the Wave Islet Sword Monarch's inheritance. It would be hard to say if someone were to look into it. However, it didn't matter. His participation in the world's first Spirit Cultivator Conference was just a spur-of-the-moment decision. At worst, he could just make this identity disappear in the future. Following that, he circled around the underworld and found that the souls were no longer directly sent into the 6 paths of reincarnation. Some of them would be sent into the 18 levels of hell, where they would be subjected to endless torture before they had a chance to reincarnate. This was to pay for the sins of his past life. Finally, Lung Shiqi looked at the conditions for the next upgrade of the Mansion of the Dead. Underworld Territory's current level, Tier 5. Requirements for upgrading the territory of the underworld. 1. Recruiting 2 Yama Kings of the 10 Palaces. 2. Collect a top-level soul, 0 out of 1. 316,000 system coins. Seeing these 3 conditions, Lung Shiqi felt a headache coming on. First of all, the first condition was for him to summon 2 Yama Kings of the 10 Palaces or even higher-ranked members of the underworld. Wu Xiang was already like a blind cat running into a dead mouse. Where is he going to find 2 more? Just this condition alone would be enough to hold him back for a long time. And the second condition was to collect a top-level soul. What was a top-level soul? One must know that the soul of an expert in the unity of heaven and man realm was only a high-level soul. A top-level soul could only be the soul of an expert in the heavenly origin realm. Lung Shiqi believed that his strength was not much weaker than an expert in the heavenly origin realm. However, it was still extremely difficult to kill an expert in the heavenly origin realm. At this moment, Lung Shiqi could not help but think of the 1,000 Illusion Sword Master. If he had died a little later, wouldn't he have gotten this top-level soul? As for the third condition, it was not a big deal. With his current status, 160,000 system coins was not a big problem. However, it would be a long time before the next upgrade of the Mansion of the Dead. Since that was the case, Lung Shiqi was not in a hurry. He collected his emotions and left the Mansion of the Dead to return to the Dark Thunder Guard's headquarters. Fortunately, his doppelganger was not detected and a report was placed in his study. After a day of competition, half of the participants in each realm were eliminated. This caused quite a stir in the outside world. This was because there were indeed some people who were unexpectedly eliminated. There were even a few people who were thought to be able to compete for a place in the Dragon rankings who were eliminated. It cannot be helped. The participants were randomly selected. It was not impossible for 2 experts of the same realm to meet each other in advance. When the results came out, it became a hot topic before tea and dinner. After the first round of competition, the people who participated in the gambling were naturally happy and sad. The imperial capital was now more lively than 2 days ago. Lung Shiqi also saw information about himself in the report. The Dark Thunder Guards thought that it was necessary to investigate his background. They even sent people out to sea to find information about the Wave Islet Sword Monarch. Lung Shiqi did not know whether to laugh or cry. It was not good for his subordinates to be too hard-working and capable. He silently checked this report. Of course, it was impossible to investigate. There was nothing else worth paying attention to. He closed his eyes and rested. After 2 days, Lung Shiqi and the others came to the minor 5 elements chaos paradise again. This time, the number of people was reduced by half. After today, it would be reduced by half again. Most of the people who could come here again were great experts at the unity of heaven and man realm. Any one of them was an existence that people looked up to. There were only a few people who could definitely obtain a place in the Flying Dragon rankings. As for the remaining people, the difference in strength was not very big. It would depend on whether they were willing to use their trump cards. There were about 4 people who were recognized by everyone to be in the Flying Dragon rankings. They were Wei Zhen from the Six Directions spiritual region. He was one of the personal disciples of the Six Directions spiritual sovereign. Ever since he participated in the first Spirit Cultivator Conference, he had easily defeated all the opponents. No one could force him to use his true strength. In the eyes of others, he was most likely to obtain first place in the Flying Dragon rankings. There was also Cui Linglong from the mysterious 10,000 Law sect. She was a rare beauty and the most outstanding disciple of the previous generation. She was also one of the candidates for the next sect master. It was worth mentioning that she had also signed up for the Phoenix Dance ranking selection. Her popularity was quite high. In addition, Hua Feiyuan, an expert from the 5-level sect, Liuhua Palace, was also very strong. He had the heaven-scorching poison fire, a variant of the fire element. No one dared to take it head-on. As for the last person, he was a devil cultivator from the Purgatory Demon sect. No one knew his name, only his title, Black Devil Hand. Those who lost to him were all seriously injured. If it was not for the fact that there were people watching, they would have died. These 4 people were top-notch in terms of status and strength. They had taken 4 places in the Flying Dragon rankings by default. Chapter 762. Therefore, only 32 out of the 36 spots on the Flying Dragon list were actually being fought for. Lung Shiqi's appearance attracted some attention, but it was just a casual glance. Although his victory was unexpected, his opponents in this round were all stronger than the previous one. In the eyes of others, this was the end of his journey. It was already very impressive for a mid-stage union of heaven and man to make it this far. Lung Shiqi did not care about other people's gazes. He narrowed his eyes and waited for his opponent. Not long after, Heavenly Venerable Black Flame and Monarch Cloud Shuttle appeared. They were ready to start without saying a word. Immediately, 20 names appeared in each of the 10 regions. This time, Lung Shiqi's name was not on the list. However, a noteworthy name appeared. It was Black Devil Hand from the Purgatory Demon sect. This was an expert who was qualified to fight for the top spot on the Flying Dragon list. He instantly attracted everyone's attention. His opponent was Yun Liangji, the sect master of the first-rate sect Cloud Peak. He was at the peak of union of heaven and man and was not weak. However, he encountered Black Devil Hand one after another. He shook his head and could only blame himself for being unlucky. Even Yun Liangji himself thought that he could not defeat Black Devil Hand. Of course, he would not admit defeat. Even if he lost, he had to lose with dignity. He cupped his fists and said, "I'm Yun Liangji, the sect master of the Cloud Peak sect. I heard that you have a high cultivation. I'd like to see it for myself." Black Devil Hand's face darkened. He sneered and said, "You will see it for yourself." Yun Liangji's expression turned cold. He waved his arms and misty clouds surged in the surroundings. They covered the sky and made the minor 5 elements chaos paradise look like a fairyland. A strange weapon was held in his hand. It seemed to have merged with the clouds, making it difficult for others to grasp. A trace of disdain flashed across Black Devil Hand's eyes. He grabbed with his hand, as if he was going to tear the sky and shatter the stars. Countless elemental forces began to go berserk. There was even a trace of origin energy of heaven and earth. Yin Liangji was shocked. He could not resist Black Devil Hand's demonic palm at all. As the demonic palm approached, the surrounding clouds and mist were swept away in an instant. Yin Liangji's face turned red and his blood rushed to his head. His body flew backward, and the odd-shaped weapon in his hand cracked and almost broke. Yin Liangji was defeated by the Black Devil Hand in one move. Everyone's expression suddenly changed. They had seen the Black Demon Hand fight before, and he had defeated his opponent in one move. However, Yin Liangji was not a small character. He could be considered a powerhouse, but in front of the Black Devil Hand, he was unable to withstand a single blow. The strength of the Black Devil Hand is so terrifying. He seems to have touched the edge of the Sky Origin stage. It won't be long before the Purgatory Demon Sect has another Sky Origin cultivator. That Wei Chu, Yuling Long, and Huafei Yuan are probably not weaker than the Black Demon Hand. These people can be considered to be half a step into the Sky Origin stage. Why are they participating in the first Spirit Cultivator assembly instead of going into seclusion to break through to the Sky Origin stage? Even if they break through to the Sky Origin stage, they're still at the bottom of the Sky Origin stage. They can't be as impressive in front of us as they are now. That's true. Now that the Flying Dragon leaderboard is within their reach, they can forget about the Divine Dragon leaderboard. It's better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. The Black Demon Hand defeated Yin Liangji, who was at the pinnacle of the unity of heaven and man realm, in one move, naturally attracted the shock and discussion of the crowd. Lung Shiqi could not help but be a little surprised. They were both of the unity of heaven and man realm, but the difference in strength was too great. The strength of the 4 Dark Thunder Guards was probably not comparable to the Black Demon Hand. At the same time, Lung Shiqi was calculating in his heart. If he used his full strength, would he be able to defeat the Black Demon Hand? He had many trump cards, but the Black Demon Hand definitely had them too. He really wanted to find an opponent of this level to fight. Soon, his opportunity came. It was his turn in the next round. However, his opponent was not at the level of the Black Demon Hand, but an old acquaintance, Huang Xiwan from the first-class sect of Donglin County, Wu Ju. When Huang Xiwan saw that his opponent was Lung Shiqi, he secretly smiled. He knew that Lung Shiqi was not weak, but he had only reached the pinnacle of the unity of heaven and man realm. Moreover, when they fought in Donglin County, Lung Shiqi was no match for Tang Haoquang. Naturally, he could not defeat Huang Xiwan. Huang Xiwan secretly sighed, "My luck is good." He walked to an empty space, looked at Lung Shiqi in the distance, and said, "Young friend Lung, last time in Donglin County, you and I were deeply regretful that we could not fight. This time, I finally got what I wanted." Lung Shiqi smiled. "Master Huang, you're a master of both sword and saber. Please show mercy." Huang Xiwan grasped the void, and a 7th-level spiritual sword appeared in his hand. When the sword came out, a strange wave was suddenly emitted. The sword's shadow was like the moon attacking the sky. Lung Shiqi's mind moved, and countless sword chi burst out from the sky and the ground. Some of these sword chi were fierce and violent. Some were soft like water, some were like maggots, and some were hidden in the dark, waiting for an opportunity. Hundreds and thousands of different sword chi directly shattered Huang Xiwan's sword shadow. Huang Xiwan exclaimed softly. He found that Lung Shiqi's sword chi was stronger than the last time in Donglin County. It was not that there were more of them, but that the sword intent in the sword chi was sharper and more changeable. This obvious improvement made Huang Xiwan feel a little suffocated. When one reached the realm of the unity of heaven and man realm, both the progress of cultivation and the improvement of combat effectiveness were very slow. For example, Huang Xuan's 5-sword moves and 5-saber moves were famous in Donglin County, but it was extremely difficult for him to comprehend another sword move. In other words, there was almost no way for him to improve his strength, and it was very difficult for him to go further. However, Lung Shiqi's sword qi was clearly much stronger. It had not been long, and there was such an obvious improvement, which made Huang Xuan envious. This made Huang Xuan want to defeat Lung Shiqi with absolute strength, so that he could feel better. He immediately said, "Young friend Lung, I know you have mastered the water and earth sword moves and the magical sword skills of sword immortals and sword gods, but it is not enough to defeat me. You and I are acquaintances, so there is no need for a long battle. Why don't we decide the outcome with one move?" "All right." Lung Shiqi smiled, revealing his white teeth. Huang Xuan held a 7-tier saber on both sides, and the saber and the sword struck out at the same time. A dazzling light flashed, like the sun and the moon shining together, illuminating the entire minor 5 elements chaos grotto heaven. The imposing manner that bordered the world made everyone look askance. Lung Shiqi did not strike out with his sword. Suddenly, a black qi rose behind him, and an aura that seemed to come from the netherworld spread out, making the experts of the unity of heaven and man realm feel chilled down their spines. Then, in the black qi, a ghost gate that was hundreds of feet tall loomed, like the opening of the gate of hell. The minor 5 elements chaos grotto heaven was instantly filled with a cold wind and the howling of ghosts. The gate of hell. Chapter 763. The other masters immediately frowned. The gate of the underworld summoned by Lung Shiqi was too gloomy, making people feel as if they were in hell. Even these masters who were in the oneness of heaven and man realm felt a chill run down their spines. Huang Xuan's hands, which were holding the sword and saber, even trembled slightly. He was not shocked by the power of the gate of the underworld, but by the terrifying aura that struck directly at his soul. That was the aura of death. Anyone would be afraid when facing death, but Huang Xuan actually felt the aura of death from the gate of the underworld. Lung Shiqi formed a sword with his fingers, and a shocking sword essence suddenly appeared. The sword Immortal Phantom stepped out with a sword, and suddenly the void froze, as if time had stopped. Then, Lung Shiqi's soul merged into the sword Immortal Phantom. The 3 of heaven, man, and God became one, and the sword broke the world. The first move of the sword god. At the same time, the gate of the underworld continued to surge out of the gate of the underworld. The sword Immortal Phantom was also stained with a layer of black gas, becoming half black and half white, like a demon god. Lung Shiqi mobilized the power of the gate of the underworld on the basis of the first move of the sword god. The pure sword essence merged with the underworld's power. This was the ghost god's sword. Huang Xuan was really shocked this time. He had seen Lung Shiqi's first move of the sword god. Back then, he had used this move to force Tang Haoquang to see this ability. But now, the first move of the sword god had transformed into the ghost god's sword. It was completely without words, and its power had multiplied. This suddenly increased the pressure on Huang Xuan, because he was not confident that he could withstand this sword. He, who had just said that he would win in one move, now began to hate himself for talking nonsense. But now he could not back down. It was still unknown who would win. Huang Xuan's saber and sword came out together. The saber was like a brilliant sun that shone through the ages, and the sword was like a falling moon that cut through the past and present. The saber and sword had the power of the sun and the moon. This was Huang Xuan's strongest saber and sword. Back then, he had defeated the master of the Mountain Sea sect, Chongfengyu, with this move, so he still had some confidence in his heart. However, in the next moment, his confidence was instantly destroyed. The ghost god sword and the sun and moon saber sword collided violently. Everyone thought that this would be a fierce collision, but the result was that before the two could even get close, the luminous sun and flying moon was contaminated by the endless netherworld chi. In the blink of an eye, half of the luminous sun and flying moon was corroded, and its spirituality was greatly damaged. On the other hand, Lung Shiqi's sword of demons and gods was even more powerful. In an instant, the sword of demons and gods could cut through the sun and shatter the moon. Not only that, but the ghost god's sword continued slashing at Huang Xiuan. The sword intent that was filled with ghostly aura was like the descent of the Grim Reaper, about to reap Huang Xiuan's life. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of Huang Xiuan's mouth. His heart was in turmoil, but his mind was clear. He immediately shouted, "Stop! I admit defeat." Before he could finish his sentence, wisps of black flames appeared. Those flames looked extremely weak, but each wisp contained the essence of heaven and earth. Under the black flames, Lung Shiqi's demon god sword evaporated like snow under the sun. The one who attacked was naturally heavenly venerable black flame. Lung Shiqi waved his hand and summoned back the gate of the underworld. He cupped his hands at heavenly venerable black flame and left. He knew that the more he spoke, the more likely he would make mistakes. It was better not to speak. Heavenly venerable black flame stared at Lung Shiqi for a while. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Monarch Cloud Shuttle sent a voice transmission. "Black Flame, you seem to care a lot about this Lung Shiqi. He looks a little familiar. Moreover, this person's strength far exceeds his cultivation level. He is worth paying attention to. Just now, Yunliang Ji's cultivation technique was somewhat similar to yours. Didn't you care a lot about it? Coincidence, it's just a coincidence." As for the others, they could not help but exclaim. "This Lung Shiqi defeated Meng Xian in one move last time. I thought that was his limit. I didn't expect him to be so strong. He is indeed strong. That Huang Xiuan is at the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm. He is also an expert who has the qualifications to be ranked on the Flying Dragon list. In the end, he was still defeated by Lung Shiqi in 2 moves. I think that Huang Xiuan is a bit too arrogant. If he had fought steadily, with his strength and battle experience, he might have been able to win. But he insisted on playing with 1 move to determine the outcome. In the end, he played himself into it. I'm very curious about the origins of Lung Shiqi. It is said that he is the disciple of the heavenly origin stage expert, Sword King Lang Yu. But that ghastly thing just now was obviously not the inheritance of the Sword King Lang Yu. This time, it's quite mysterious. To be honest, I feel that he has something to do with the Netherworld Temple. The moment the words Netherworld Temple were spoken, the entire place immediately fell silent. In this continent, the most mysterious and powerful forces were the Yin and Yang halls. It was rumored that these 2 forces were even stronger than the 3 great imperial dynasties. However, their whereabouts were too secretive, and a large number of spirit cultivators had never seen the Yin and Yang halls in their entire lives. However, the people gathered here were all the upper echelons of the various large forces, and they had more or less heard of the Yin and Yang halls. Among them, the Netherworld Temple seemed to cultivate the power of the Netherworld. They then thought of Lung Shiqi's age, cultivation, and strength. If there was any force that could nurture such a genius, it would probably be the Netherworld Temple. With that said, the more everyone thought about it, the more they felt that it was possible. In the end, Lung Shiqi was already labeled as a member of the Netherworld Temple. After Lung Shiqi stood up, there were people who came over to talk to him. Their words seemed to be testing his identity, but Lung Shiqi's words seemed simple, but in reality, they were watertight, and no one could see through him. This way, he became even more mysterious in everyone's hearts. Huang Xiuan's old face was flushed red. Before the battle, he thought that he was very lucky. Who would have thought that he would lose to a junior? At the same time, a knot appeared in his heart, and that was whether Lung Shiqi had deliberately held back his strength when he was in Donglin County. If Lung Shiqi had deliberately admitted defeat when he fought with Tang Haoquang, It meant that Lung Shiqi had the strength to defeat Tang Haoquang at that time. It meant that Lung Shiqi was not only talented, but also scheming enough. If Lung Shiqi had not held back his strength at that time, it meant that Lung Shiqi's strength had increased by a large margin from Donglin County until now. But how is that possible? Huang Xuan would rather believe that it was the first possibility than believe that a man in the oneness of heaven and men realm could advance by leaps and bounds in just a few months. Huang Xuan forcefully suppressed the complicated emotions in his heart. He tried his best to make himself look normal as he walked to Lung Shiqi's side and asked, "Brother Lung, I've always been a straightforward person. I accept my defeat wholeheartedly, but please answer me honestly. When did you master the move that defeated me just now?" Lung Shiqi scratched his head and replied, "Oh, I just comprehended it when I watched the Black Devil Hand fight." Puffed. Huang Xuan spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 764. Lung Shiqi's words almost caused Huang Xuan to faint. Huang Xuan did not know whether Lung Shiqi was telling the truth or not, but he really did not have the face to continue staying here, so he simply waved his sleeves and left. There was no lack of spiritual mages among the experts present. Cui Linglong, who was recognized as the strongest spiritual mage, was a little surprised at this moment. She thought to herself, "Did I see wrongly? Lung Shiqi's mental strength seems to be higher than mine." Lung Shiqi did not know what others were thinking. His own mood was fluctuating because even he did not expect the power of the gate of the underworld to be so great. This was the first time the power of the underworld had appeared in this world. It could also be said that this power did not belong to this world. Perhaps it was because of this that it was so terrifying. Not only that, when Lung Shiqi fought with Huang Xuan, he did not completely use the power of the gate of the underworld. The power of the gate of the underworld was actually determined by the number of souls collected in the underworld and the quality of the souls. However, Lung Shiqi did not summon the thousands of souls in the underworld. Otherwise, it was unknown whether Huang Xuan could survive. The gate of the underworld had significantly improved Lung Shiqi's strength. Now, if he were to fight with the 4 experts of the Black Devil Hand, he was quite confident. After this round of battle, half of the people were eliminated. There were only 44 experts left. There were 36 positions in the Flying Dragon list, so there were still 8 people present who would not be able to enter the Flying Dragon list. Since they had already come this far, naturally no one was willing to give up. The opportunity to become famous in the world was close at hand. It was worth mentioning that except for Lung Shiqi, everyone else was at the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm. Lung Shiqi was the only exception. His existence was no longer a dispensable character. The ghostly sword he used to defeat Huang Xuan was somewhat shocking. Not all the experts present were confident that they could withstand it. No one dared to be careless when fighting against him. From the looks of it, Lung Shiqi had become a powerful opponent for the Flying Dragon list. Empyrean He Yin descended from the sky. Everyone is only one step away from the Flying Dragon list. According to the rules, there will be another competition. The 22 victors will directly enter the Flying Dragon list and have the right to be exempted from challenges. As for the losers, they were not eliminated. You still had a chance, and that was to take turns fighting. The 14 people who won the most matches would also be able to enter the Flying Dragon list. When all 30 spots on the Flying Dragon leaderboard were filled, there would be a ranking battle. Those who were ranked lower could challenge those who were ranked higher, but the 22 who won at the beginning had the right to refuse once. If many people challenged the same person at the same time, then the challenged person had the right to choose his opponent. This will determine your final ranking and then make it public. Emperor Black Flame stated the following rules. Hearing this, everyone's hearts calmed down. Even if they lost once, they still had a chance. Naturally, their hopes were much greater. The 10,000 Laws Sex Cui Linglong covered her mouth and smiled. She asked, "Dare I ask, Heavenly Venerable Black Flame, when is the next battle?" Heavenly Venerable Black Flame only said 2 words, "Now." Now, Everyone was stunned. The last time a battle ended was 2 days ago. Why was it so urgent this time? Moreover, everyone had just fought, and some of them had even suffered minor injuries. If they continued to fight in this state, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. Immediately, many people showed their dissatisfaction. Monarch Cloud Shuttle said, "To have your current cultivation and achievements, you must have experienced countless life and death tribulations. No danger can make you ready to deal with it. I don't think you can even deal with this small difficulty. Moreover, we have prepared high-grade spirit pills that can help you recover to your peak state." That's right. Heavenly Venerable Black Flame continued. "Moreover, you are only competing, not fighting to the death. There is no need for this, and it won't affect you much." The two Sky Origin Stage cultivators, who were also the Dark Thunder Guards and the Discipline Commission's commander, had said so. Although the crowd was dissatisfied, they didn't dare to offend the two bosses, so they all nodded in agreement. Of course, this rule was arranged by Lung Shichi. The reason why he did this was that he didn't want the candidates of the Flying Dragon list to cause trouble. Among the 44 people, to be honest, none of them would be eliminated. However, in fact, some of them would be eliminated. In the end, it was hard to say who would miss the Flying Dragon list. If there was time, these people might take a good rest and prepare for the next battle. However, the people who came with them might not be so obedient. Maybe someone would cause trouble because of this. Not only the Flying Dragon list, but also the Hidden Dragon list and the Wandering Dragon list. Lung Shichi decided to decide the final candidates in one go, so as to avoid unnecessary trouble. The cultivators in the small Chaos Paradise accepted this rule. Heavenly Venerable Black Flame waved his hand, and names appeared in the battle area again. Lung Shichi looked at the names, and his mouth twitched. His opponent this time was Chui Ling Long from the wonderful sect of Thousand Arts. A cultivator who was half a step away from the Sky Origin stage, the most popular candidate for the first place of the Flying Dragon list. Chui Ling Long was not as cold as Hei Mo's Ho. She looked at Lung Shichi, licked her lips, and said, "Little brother, it is you. I'm very interested in you." Lung Shichi didn't know whether he was lucky or not. He did want to fight against Chui Ling Long, but he used his full strength, not the identity of the Wave Island Sword King's disciple. Now, as he wished, he met Chui Ling Long. However, even with the help of the Gate of the Underworld, he couldn't defeat Chui Ling Long. Lung Shichi touched his chin and suddenly had an idea. He smiled and said, "It is not impossible to defeat her." Then he raised his head and said, "Unfortunately, I am also interested in you." Hee. Chui Ling Long's eyes were full of smiles. "You little naughty boy. Come, let's have a good talk." Then she stretched out her little finger and hooked it at Lung Shichi. Suddenly, a series of dry coughs could be heard from the side. It was supposed to be a proper competition, but why was the atmosphere so strange in front of the two of them? Chui Ling Long's beauty could be considered to be very beautiful. Otherwise, she wouldn't have participated in the Phoenix Dance ranking. However, everyone present was old and had seen all kinds of beauties. Besides, they all knew very well that Chui Ling Long looked to be in her 30s. She was mature and charming, but in fact, she was already in her 70s or 80s. They were not interested in the old woman. Someone secretly transmitted a message. Chui Ling Long can't be an old cow eating young grass, right? No, it should be an old cow eating a young cow. Maybe that kid likes this kind of food. Chapter 765. Lung Shichi did not know what others were thinking. He looked relaxed on the surface, but he had already adjusted himself to the best state and was ready to fight Chui Ling Long. Chui Ling Long smiled and walked forward. "Little brother, don't be nervous. Big sister will be gentle." As she spoke, in the blink of an eye, with Yu Ling Long as the center, a dazzling array formation instantly unfolded. The array was dark green in color. As it slowly rotated, it emitted a power that made the heavens and earth tremble. Even the air was dyed with a layer of green. The nearby experts' faces changed slightly. The green light contained poison. Everyone immediately retreated far away. Lung Shiqi also frowned. He had seen Cui Linglong fight before, but he had never seen her use poison. In addition, generally speaking, high-level spirit cultivators would not cultivate poison techniques, because even spirit pulse stage spirit cultivators had protective spirit chi, and ordinary poisons had no effect. Therefore, the higher the realm, the greater the drawback of poison. But now that Cui Linglong was using poison, no one dared to underestimate it. Lung Shiqi thought that his body was strong and was not afraid of poison. However, he still summoned sword chi to protect his body. He was not willing to use his body to test the poison. At this time, Cui Linglong's figure quietly disappeared into the array. Lung Shiqi held the spirit sword in his hand and stabbed out. Behind him, a stormy wave was formed completely from sword chi. The sword wave roared out and rampaged. However, the dark green aura was eroding the sword wave. Soon, more than half of it was assimilated. Lung Shiqi could not even find Cui Linglong's shadow. Not only that, the dark green aura was still slowly expanding. It seemed that it was about to completely envelop Lung Shiqi. Lung Shiqi felt that it was a bit tricky. Cui Linglong did not rely on her cultivation to attack. Instead, she used this strange method to test the waters. From this point of view, Cui Linglong definitely did not underestimate Lung Shiqi. She treated him as an opponent of the same level. Lung Shiqi was already at a disadvantage before the two sides even started fighting. He had some methods to force Cui Linglong out, but that would expose his identity. Therefore, Lung Shiqi closed his eyes and connected his mind with the ground beneath his feet. More than half of the ground of the minor chaos paradise was under his control. Found it! Lung Shiqi's eyes widened as he used the power of the earth to locate Cui Linglong. With a point of the spirit sword, the sword river surged upwards. Boundless sword intent engulfed the entire area, heading straight for the edge of the formation. Sure enough, a blurry figure formed a strange hand seal with both hands. In an instant, flames soared into the sky, dazzling golden light and rolling thunder. Cui Linglong was able to control 3 powerful elements at the same time. Crimson flames, golden light, and lightning filled the heavens and earth, colliding with each other and emitting bursts of violent aura. In an instant, Lung Shiqi's sword river was annihilated. Little brother, you're quite sensitive. You found me so quickly. Cui Linglong was still able to tease him while controlling the 3 violent forces. It was clear that her control over the forces had reached an extreme level. Lung Shiqi ignored Cui Linglong. He changed his sword style, and suddenly, endless green sword light bloomed like a flood dragon. It was extraordinarily powerful. However, in Cui Linglong's eyes, this sword style was still a little weak. She pointed her finger, and the 3 forces in the sky suddenly shrank and condensed into a huge 3-headed python. Each head of the python contained different forces: golden light, raging flames, and lightning. Then, the 3 python heads opened their mouths, and circles of formations appeared. The 3 forces of gold, crimson, and purple poured down as if they were going to penetrate the entire ground. Lung Shiqi's sword Chi Flood Dragon was pierced into several pieces. He also knew that he could not defeat Cui Linglong with this sword style. With a thought, the broken flood dragon turned into a sea. There were no waves in the sea, as if it was a pool of stagnant water. An island stood in the middle of the sea. The island was surrounded by clouds, like a legendary mirage. Cui Linglong's 3 streams of light that could shatter everything fell into the sea, like a clay ox entering the sea, and did not cause any waves. The surrounding experts were surprised. How did Cui Linglong's powerful spiritual technique disappear just like that? How did Lung Shiqi do it? Cui Linglong also stopped smiling. Her expression became serious. However, her eyes immediately flashed, and she said, "So, it's an illusion technique. Moreover, it's an extremely special illusion technique. It has already reached the level where it can change reality and illusion. You've really hidden yourself well. You flatter me. A mirage seems to be an illusion, but it actually exists somewhere in the world. It can be considered an illusion, Lung Shiqi explained. Chui Linglong and the other experts nodded, as if they were serious. The real situation was that Lung Shiqi was just using an illusion. He condensed a black hole under the illusion to swallow Chui Linglong's attack. Of course, in order not to be seen by Celestial Master He Yin and Monarch Cloud Shuttle, he only used a trace of the power of the black hole. In addition, he used an illusion to cover it, so it should not be discovered. He used such a cheating method to tie with Chui Linglong, which showed that Chui Linglong's strength was also very strong. Hearing this, Chui Linglong's expression changed. Then, she suddenly smiled and said, "Little brother, you've also comprehended illusions. That's great. However, this elder sister also knows illusions. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Why don't you try my illusions?" She asked Lung Shiqi, but before she finished the sentence, a misty light flashed around her. Everyone felt a flash of whiteness. When they looked again, Lung Shiqi and Chui Linglong had disappeared inexplicably. In fact, it was not that they disappeared, but that everyone was unknowingly under the illusion. It was the same for Lung Shiqi. He was currently in a pure white space. There was not a single person or object around him. Everything that entered his eyes was completely blank. Extreme darkness and extreme light could both blind a person. Not long after, Lung Shiqi felt that he couldn't see anything. Even his perception had been deprived. He was no different from a blind person without any cultivation. At this moment, a green stream of light as thick as a finger streaked across Lung Shiqi's back. Puffed. The stream of light instantly penetrated Lung Shiqi's back, leaving a clear, bloody hole in his body. Then, Lung Shiqi's body fell in a pool of blood. Chui Linglong frowned as she appeared. She muttered, "Is he really dead?" Puffed. However, in the next moment, she suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood. She looked down and saw that the tip of a sword had pierced through her heart. How? How is this possible? Chui Linglong could not believe what she saw. They were clearly in her illusion. How could she be sneak attacked? At this moment, Lung Shiqi's voice sounded behind her. "Miss, I forgot to tell you that I am also very resistant to illusions. Your illusion is useless against me." In the outside world, Chui Linglong's illusion could only affect the masters for a moment at most. When they broke free from the illusion, they saw Lung Shiqi piercing through Chui Linglong with his sword. Many of the masters watching the battle could not help but breathe rapidly. The result was that Lung Shiqi won. He had actually defeated Chui Linglong, the most popular person on the Flying Dragon list. At the same time, it meant that he had obtained a place on the Flying Dragon list. Although they did not know how Lung Shiqi won, a victory was a victory. In a battle, one only looked at the result, not the process. Chapter 766. In fact, Lung Shiqi was able to win against Chui Linglong because of a little trick. If it was a normal fight, he would have lost to Chui Linglong if he could not use his full strength. Therefore, Lung Shiqi purposely used the power of the earth to create an illusion of Sea City Chenlu to arouse Chui Linglong's desire to win. As the most powerful spiritual cultivation sect in the world, the wonderful sect of 10,000 arts definitely had illusions. Therefore, since Chui Linglong was able to cultivate a genius like Meng Tiantian, she must have dabbled in illusions as a master of the wonderful sect of 10,000 arts. After being stimulated by Lung Shiqi, Chui Linglong would most likely use illusions to fight back. Then, she would fall into Lung Shiqi's trap. Lung Shiqi's mind power had already condensed into a godly soul. This was something only a spiritual cultivator of the Tianyuan realm could have. Moreover, he was also proficient in illusions. Chui Linglong, who did not specialize in illusions, was naturally inferior to him in this aspect. At this moment, his spiritual sword had pierced through Chui Linglong's chest. However, Chui Linglong's life force did not show any signs of dissipating. Her chest was filled with strands of dark green radiance. Lung Shiqi's sword did not feel like it had pierced through anything. You can't hurt me. I didn't lose. Chui Linglong stopped joking and gritted her teeth angrily. Lung Shiqi shook his head. I didn't use any sword skills. Otherwise, even if you have a secret technique to protect yourself, you will either die or be crippled. Little sister, why are you so stubborn? You. Chui Linglong was about to explode with anger. Just as she was about to explode, Lord He Yin descended from the sky. His eyes contained the power of divine anger. Chui Linglong immediately shut her mouth. Lord He Yin said calmly, "It's just a fight. There is no life or death. A loss is a loss." Yes, although Chui Linglong was unwilling, she did not dare to be presumptuous in front of heavenly venerable black flame. She could only swallow her anger and roll her eyes at Lung Shiqi, as if she could peel off a layer of his skin with her gaze. Lung Shiqi ignored this look, but he could not ignore the looks of the other masters. At this time, those who were not involved in the battle were staring at Lung Shiqi. None of them understood how Lung Shiqi won. In short, it was related to illusion. Not only was his cultivation profound at such a young age, his talent in the sword Dao was astonishing, and he even grasped a type of extreme yin energy. That was not all. It seemed that his attainments in illusions were also very high. How much more was he hiding? Where were the limits of his strength? Lung Shiqi's three opponents so far were Meng Xian, Huang Shuan, and Chui Linglong. Except for Meng Xian, the rest of the battles were beyond everyone's expectations. Where did such a monstrous genius come from in the Thunderblaze dynasty? After Chui Linglong walked into the crowd, Celestial Master He Yin turned around and glanced at Lung Shiqi. At the same time, a voice sounded in his ears. "It seems that you are very free." Lung Shiqi's heart skipped a beat, then he smiled inwardly. Celestial Master He Yin had seen through him. Perhaps he had used his mental strength when countering Chui Linglong's illusion. A person's appearance could be easily changed, but the aura of one's mental strength could not be changed. This was why Celestial Master He Yin had sensed it. However, Celestial Master He Yin immediately flew into the sky and continued to observe the other battles, as if he had no intention of interfering. Lung Shiqi thought about it and felt that it was true. He was originally the core person of the World First Spirit Cultivator Conference. It was not a big deal for him to secretly go down and play a game. Furthermore, according to the information from the Soul Avatar, it wouldn't be long before Heavenly Venerable Black Flame and Monarch Cloud Shuttle would enter the Imperial Consecration Hall and give up their positions. They must have heard the news, and at this time, they were not in the mood to meddle in other people's business. Following Lung Shiqi's victory over Chui Linglong, he had already confirmed a spot on the Flying Dragon list. As for the specific ranking, it was hard to say. He would have to wait until the ranking battle to confirm it. However, Lung Shiqi's interest was almost at an end. In any case, entering the Flying Dragon list was his goal. He did not care about the ranking. After all, this identity could only be considered a temporary alias. Moreover, he had defeated Chui Linglong, so the other party would definitely not let it go. With Chui Linglong's strength, she would definitely win the next battle. At that time, she would definitely challenge Lung Shiqi. That would be troublesome. Thus, Lung Shiqi left the minor chaos paradise under everyone's astonished gazes. Why did he leave? He gave up on the ranking battle. This way, his ranking will not be near the top. Maybe he paid a big price to defeat Chui Linglong and can't fight anymore. At least he knows his place. That makes sense. His cultivation is the lowest. When the ranking battle comes, people will want to challenge him the most. Lung Shiqi walked out of the minor chaos paradise and went straight back to the Dark Thunder Guard's headquarters. There was another reason why he left early. The battles of the unity of heaven and man realm were about to enter the final ranking battle. Then, the battles of the other realms would only progress faster. It was time for him to come out and end it. When he arrived at the Xingji Pavilion, Lung Shiqi withdrew the illusory body he used to deceive people and called Renyi. "Sir, the Hidden Dragon list and the Wandering Dragon list are out." "Oh?" That's fast. Let me see. Lung Shichi was very interested in the people on the Hidden Dragon list and the Wandering Dragon list. He first opened the Hidden Dragon list. It included the most outstanding low-level disciples of the Thunderblaze dynasty. These people were definitely the most important people of the younger generation of the major forces. Unfortunately, Lung Shichi did not know anyone on the list. He only vaguely remembered a few people from the Dark Thunder Guards. Then he opened the list of the Wandering Dragon list. There were a few familiar names on it. For example, Bing Shang. He was currently ranked 8th on the Wandering Dragon list. Bing Shang's cultivation was at the peak of the Spirit Aperture realm. He had the Ice variant Zero Ice and was later accepted as a disciple by Black Frost Noble Lady. It was not surprising that he had such a high ranking. With Bing Shang's name on the list, Lung Shichi could imagine that when the Dragon list was released, the Blood Robe Pavilion's name would gradually appear in front of everyone. This was what the upper echelons of the Blood Robe Pavilion wanted to see the most. Aside from Bing Shang, he also saw Yin Yi and Mo Li's names. These two were relatively famous beauties in the capital. They were in the middle of the Wandering Dragon list. Lung Shichi continued to look and did not see Tang Wanqiu's name. This was within his expectations. Although Tang Wanqiu's cultivation had greatly increased and could last 2 more rounds, it was still too difficult for her to enter the Wandering Dragon list. That's good, Lung Shichi murmured. He had an idea in his mind. At this moment, He Feichen hurried in from outside. Sir, the Divine Dragon list has been decided. Chapter 767. Lung Shichi raised his eyebrows so fast. There were not many Sky Origin Realm experts participating in the First Spirit Cultivator Conference this time, but the speed of the battle between Sky Origin Realm experts was unpredictable. Especially since the battle this time was to throw out one's mental power, one could display one's skills without any worries. Logically speaking, it should be more difficult. He Feichen replied, Sir, it's a coincidence that in the Battle of Sky Origin Realm, the difference in strength between the opponents is very obvious, so the process is very fast. The experts of the Divine Dragon ranking are here. Please take a look. Lung Shichi hooked his finger, and the ranking list flew into his hand. When he opened it, the first name that entered his eyes was Fu Yingxi, the Hall Master of the top sect, Supreme Saber Hall, Fu Yingxi. He was also the only expert who was not afraid of the Thunderfire Dynasty's arrangements and came to the imperial capital. Lung Shichi thought for a moment. It was not surprising that Fu Yingxi could take the Divine Dragon rankings helper. After all, the Sky Origin Realm experts who could participate in the First Spirit Cultivator Conference were all rogue cultivators. As the leader of a powerful sect with a long history, if he did not take first place, it would be a bit of a disgrace to his name. In the Divine Dragon ranking, what surprised Lung Shichi the most was that he saw a very familiar person, Chu Hajing. Chu Hajing was naturally Wu Xiang, and Wu Xiang had just broken through to the Sky Origin realm, yet he was able to suppress so many experts to be ranked on the Divine Dragon ranking. Even though Wu Xiang was ranked at the bottom of the Divine Dragon ranking, which was the 12th place, it showed that Wu Xiang's strength was indeed terrifying. The battle between the unity of heaven and man realm is probably about to end. After it ends, we can announce all the rankings to the world and let everyone in the Thunderfire Dynasty know about it. These people want to be famous throughout the world. Hee, then let them be famous throughout the world. Lung Shichi sneered. Being famous was naturally a good thing, but would also push him into the heart of the storm. As for whether he could withstand it or not, that was not something he needed to worry about. This humble one understands. He Feichen turned around and was about to leave, but was stopped by Lung Shichi. He instructed, "All right, the first place of the Divine Dragon ranking, Fu Yingxi, have a special prefix added to him." Prefix? Not only He Feichen, but even Renyi was confused. Lung Shichi smiled evilly. Since we're holding the world's first Spirit Cultivator Assembly, the top of the Divine Dragon leaderboard is naturally number 1 in the world. When you announce the list, write him as the world's number 1 Fu Ying faction. Number one in the world. Everyone exclaimed at the same time as he Feichin. The reason why they were like this was not because of anything else, but because they felt that Fu Yingxi was not worthy of this title. Although Fu Yingxi was the Hall Master of the Extreme Saber Hall, his strength was naturally very strong, but he was still far from being number one in the world. Not to mention the Tongxin realm experts in the Falling Star continent. There were many Heavenly Origin realm experts in the Thunderfire dynasty who were stronger than Fu Ying. The reason why those people did not come to the first Spirit Cultivator Assembly was because they were afraid that it was a trap set by the Thunderflame dynasty and did not dare to take the risk. Otherwise, who knew if Fu Ying's lineage could even squeeze into the Divine Dragon list? When Lung Shiqi saw their reactions, he smiled even more satisfactorily. He asked, "If both of you think that Fu Yingshi is unworthy of the title of number one in the world, what will the experts of the other top sects think? What will they do? Don't forget, after the list is announced, anyone who can defeat a spirit cultivator on the list will be able to replace him." Hearing this, He Feichin and Run Yi looked at each other. They could instantly guess what Fu Ying would encounter in the future. As the so-called number one in the world, there were many people who were dissatisfied with him, and there were also many who had the ability to defeat him. It could be imagined that Fu Yingshi would be challenged by many people in the future. Those who had the strength to challenge him were basically the strongest experts of the top sections. No matter who won or lost, the grudges between these sects would be formed, and it would be a great grudge. This Fu Yingshi would probably attract endless trouble because of the title of number one in the world. Then again, the greater the conflict between the spirit cultivator sects, the more beneficial it would be for the Thunderflame dynasty. This was also the main reason why Lung Shiqi proposed the first spirit cultivator assembly. He Feichin understood everything and immediately shouted, "Master's wisdom makes me prostrate myself in admiration." Ren Yi was not as exaggerated as him, and also cupped his fists and said, "Master is wise." All right, the first spirit cultivator assembly is about to end, and there are a lot of loose ends. You guys have to keep a close eye on it, and don't let anything go wrong. Lung Shiqi waved his hand, and the two of them left. Not long after, the Heavenman Unity Realms ranking competition also ended, and the final ranking of the Flying Dragon list was finally sent to Lung Shiqi. He didn't look at anyone else, but first looked at his own position. On the Flying Dragon list, it was written like this: 22 ND place on the Flying Dragon list, Lung Shiqi. Disciple of the Sword King Lang Yu, middle stage of the Heavenman Unity Realm, proficient in the way of the sword, controlling the power of extreming. He had entered the ranking competition as the victor, so theoretically, his lowest ranking should have been 22nd place. But in reality, he had forfeited the rest of the ranking competition, so it was very likely that his ranking would be very low. He was already very satisfied that he was still at 22nd place. After all, the rest of the people on the Flying Dragon list were all at the peak of the Heavenman Unity Realm. The top four of the Flying Dragon list were Wei Zhen of the Six Directions Spirit Realm, Hufei Yuan of the Liuhua Palace, and Black Devil Hand of the Purgatory Demon Sect. The fourth place was Cui Linglong of the 10,000 Wonders Sect. Cui Linglong was actually able to climb to fourth place. It seems that her strength is well-deserved. I was lucky to be able to beat her once. Lung Shiqi said to himself. Since all the rankings had been released, it meant that the first Spirit Cultivator Assembly was coming to an end. Now, all that was left was the last public ranking. The first Spirit Cultivator Assembly had caused a huge commotion, so naturally, it couldn't be a weak finish. Therefore, Lung Shiqi had specially scheduled a grand ceremony for a few days later. The spirit cultivator who had specially come to announce the various rankings. On this day, the Emperor of the Thunderfire Dynasty, Lei Haoyan, personally came and read out all the names one by one from the Hidden Dragon list. In fact, these people already knew the results after the end of the competition, but they were still incomparably excited at this moment. This was because there were countless people watching them, causing them to feel an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. When Lei Haoyan was about to read the last name, the Hall Master of the Supreme Blade Hall, Fu Yingxi did not hide his emotions and proudly raised his head. The number one on the divine dragon list, and also the number one in the world, Fu Yingxi. After these words were spoken, the scene instantly became strangely silent, and the smile on Fu Yingxi's face also stiffened. As the number one on the divine dragon list, he had fought for it with his own hands. However, the Thunderfire dynasty had actually given him the title of number one in the world. Although he was a person who valued fame, he knew that he could not afford it. At the same time, he also understood that he had been played by the Thunderfire dynasty. Chapter 768. At this moment, Fu Yingxi was cursing the Thunderfire dynasty in his heart. He did not give anyone face and immediately turned to leave. Everyone who saw this scene secretly shook their heads. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Thunderfire dynasty was using Fu Yingxi's title of number one in the world to cause conflict between the top sections. But so what if they knew? The Sky Origin stage experts of the other top sects would still challenge Fu Yingxi like moths to a flame. This was the great attraction of fame to people. Just like the spirit cultivators on the various rankings, which one of them did not know the intentions of the Thunderfire dynasty? However, they still did not hesitate and risk their lives to fight for a position on the dragon rankings. Even if they were used by the Thunderfire dynasty, even if they would cause trouble for themselves, they still could not control themselves under the temptation of fame and fortune. With Fu Yingxi's departure, it meant that the world's first spirit cultivator assembly had finally come to an end. This grand event that had ignited all the spirit cultivators of the Thunderfire dynasty had ended, but an even greater undercurrent would sweep through all the spirit cultivator sects of the Thunderfire dynasty. After that, Lei Haoyan gathered all the ministers. All of them had happy expressions on their faces, and they were used to not showing their emotions, but they could not care less. This was because the benefits that the first Spirit Cultivator Assembly had brought to the Thunderfire dynasty were simply too great. They all knew that today was the day to discuss their merits and rewards. Lung Shiqi's soul clone first praised everyone, then directly pointed to Lung Shiqi. Minister Liu, the world's first Spirit Cultivator Assembly was your suggestion, and you were the one who presided over it from start to finish. Now that it has been completed, Minister Liu's contributions cannot go unnoticed. If you have any requests, just say it. We will do our best to satisfy you. When he said this, the minds of the ministers began to move. Lung Shiqi's contributions were undeniable. They all recognized it, so it was not too surprising that His Majesty could give such a promise. What they were curious about was, what kind of reward would Lung Shiqi propose? To him, as one of the 4 great directors of the Dark Thunder Guards, he naturally did not lack cultivation resources. Therefore, everyone guessed that he would definitely ask for power. At the same time, Lung Shiqi was already one of the 4 great directors. If he wanted to climb up, there was only one position left: the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards. Although Lung Shiqi's cultivation and experience were far from being qualified to be the Grand Commander, his contributions had deepened, and he was deeply favored by His Majesty. As the saying goes, a new emperor brings in new ministers. If Lung Shiqi really wanted to take a step forward, His Majesty might agree. Many people secretly glanced at Master Heiyan. He had been the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards for dozens of years. He was a senior Sky Origin stage cultivator. Would he be willing to give up his position to a young man? The atmosphere in the hall quickly became a little strange. Everyone was waiting for Lung Shiqi's answer. Lung Shiqi walked out of the crowd and stood in the middle of the hall. I will take whatever your Majesty gives. The sole avatar on the dragon throne smiled in satisfaction. Since that's the case, we will make the decision for you. As he spoke to her, he turned to look at Empyrean Black Flame. He didn't speak, but his meaning was clear. Empyrean Black Flame said expressionlessly, I am willing to follow your Majesty's orders. Everyone present could see that Empyrean Black Flame was unwilling to give up his power. However, he wasn't too obsessed with power and didn't want to go against His Majesty. The Soul Avatar smiled and said, "You are too serious, Grand Commander. To be honest, we do intend to let Lu Xingji be the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards. Because he is young. But because he is too young to be qualified for this important position, we have decided to give Lu Xingji the position of a candidate for the Grand Commander." A candidate for the Grand Commander. This was already amazing. Although he was only a candidate, when the time came, he would be the only candidate. The position of the Grand Commander would naturally be his. In other words, the position of the Dark Thunder Guard's Grand Commander had been reserved by him. As for when he would take the position, it was just a matter of time. Emperor Black Flame had a way out. He stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, when Lu Xingji breaks through to the Sky Origin stage, I will give up the position of the Grand Commander." The courtiers couldn't help laughing secretly. Among these people, there weren't many who had high cultivation. They all knew that the Sky Origin stage wasn't easy to break through. They didn't know how long it would take for Lung Shiqi to break through to the Sky Origin stage. It might even take a few decades. Emperor Black Flame's move of retreating to advance was brilliant. However, Lung Shiqi nodded and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." The Soul Avatar said, "Lu Xingji has made such a great contribution. I won't be so stingy as to only give him an empty title." After he finished speaking, the old eunuch beside him held the imperial edict and said, "By the will of the heavens, the Emperor decrees. Lu Xingji, the Dark Thunder Guard's Grand Commander, has made great contributions to the Empire. He will be conferred the title of Jinling Duke. In addition, the Heavenly Tomb will be opened for 3 days." As soon as the imperial edict came out, the courtiers immediately began to whisper. First of all, the opening of the Heavenly Tomb didn't surprise them. Although the Heavenly Tomb couldn't be opened at will, Lung Shiqi's contributions were too great. It was reasonable to give him a special case. However, the fact that His Majesty conferred him the title of Jinling Duke was extremely shocking. Among the ranks of nobility, Grand Duke was already the limit. Any higher, and Lung Shiqi could only be conferred the title of king. It could be said that Lung Shiqi's status was only second to that of prince. The ranks of nobility were a bit special because most of the dukes and marquises didn't hold positions in the imperial court. They basically relied on the glory of their ancestors. As for these people, the Thunderflame dynasty didn't use them as much as possible. Even if some of them held important positions, they would gradually be demoted by the next generation. In the end, they would all become idle people. The Thunderflame dynasty could let these people live a carefree life, but they definitely wouldn't let them hold great power. This was because the dukes and marquises all had some military power. According to the rank of nobility, they had the right to train soldiers in their manners. If these people still held high positions in the imperial court, it was equivalent to having the capital to rebel. No emperor would allow such a thing to happen, even if it was just a small possibility. Lung Shiqi was already one of the 4 great managers of the Dark Thunder Guards. He had also obtained the position of Great Commander Candidate. He held monstrous power in his hands and had countless experts under him. If such a person were to be given the noble status of a duke, he would be able to openly recruit soldiers and buy horses. Wouldn't that be like raising a tiger and inviting calamity? Even though some of the ministers wanted to retort, the 2 elders from the imperial family frowned deeply. However, Lei Haoyan was the first to speak. "We know that you all have misgivings, but Minister Lu has yet to marry and has no children. The title of Jinling Duke cannot be inherited. Moreover, Minister Lu is loyal. We believe in him." The second half of his sentence was directly ignored by everyone. The focus was on the first half. The title was not hereditary. In this way, Lung Shiqi's threat was much smaller, and the ministers could reluctantly accept it. Lung Shiqi knew that the opportunity couldn't be missed. He immediately said, "This minister accepts the decree. Long live your majesty." Chapter 769. Lung Shiqi had already thanked him and received his reward. Even if there were a few dissatisfied ministers, they still shut their mouths. Lei Haoyan was the new emperor, but he had also modified the First Spirit Cultivator Conference a lot. His strategy and wisdom had already been recognized by these ministers. Moreover, Leng Shiqi's contributions were unparalleled, so it was barely acceptable. There was no need to contradict the emperor over this matter. At this point, Leng Shiqi's reward was set. He had reserved the position of the Dark Thunder Guard's commander in advance. This was the power of an extremely high official. The title of Duke Jinling was a symbol of his status. Also, entering the heavenly tomb to cultivate was to increase his cultivation. These three rewards could be said to be all-encompassing. They were what Leng Shiqi needed the most. Of course, this was also a reward that he had long considered for himself. The degree of control was very good. Although many ministers felt that it was a bit excessive, there were restrictions in each reward, so it could shut their mouths. Leng Shiqi's matter was over, and all that was left was to reward them according to their contributions. In this First Spirit Cultivator Conference, apart from the Dark Thunder Guard, the Discipline Commission, the City Lord's Mansion, and almost all the officials had participated. Now that they had succeeded, they naturally had to be promoted. The atmosphere in the hall became jubilant in the blink of an eye. Basically, as long as the ministers standing here had contributed, they would receive more or less rewards. In the end, they even held a celebratory banquet. This matter was indeed worthy of celebration. After the celebratory banquet ended, Leng Shiqi walked straight into the Dark Thunder Guard's treasury. That was also the entrance to the heavenly tomb. In Leng Shiqi's eyes, power and status were important, but the most important thing was still cultivation and strength. Now that he was at the middle stage of the unity of heaven and man realm, ordinary cultivation pills were no longer of much use to him. In the unity of heaven and man realm, the key to breaking through was to communicate with the elemental power of heaven and earth. Leng Shiqi had already grasped a trace of the power of the laws of heaven and earth. This power far exceeded the power of the elements. But it was also because of this that he was missing a link. If he wanted to increase his realm as soon as possible, he had to make up for the missing link. It was just like having the idea of solving a problem or even knowing the answer. However, the process of solving the problem might not be smooth sailing. The only way to help the Leng Shiqi was to enter the heavenly tomb. In the heavenly tomb, except for the consciousnesses of the two metaphysic realm powerhouses mentioned by Prince Botch governance, the rest were all comprehensions left by Tianyuan realm powerhouses, which happened to be between the power of elements and the law of heaven and earth. If Leng Shiqi could gain enlightenment from it, he would be only one step away from the heaven origin stage. Leng Shiqi walked past the doors of the Dark Thunder Guard's treasury. He didn't even look at the countless treasures and resources. He didn't know when it started, but these things had become less and less attractive to him. At his level, comprehending the heaven and earth was far more important than some external objects. For example, when he participated in the world's First Spirit Cultivator Conference, he only used a 5th-level spiritual sword. Even so, he still managed to kill his way to 22nd place on the Flying Dragon leaderboard. And this was because he had abstained from the ranking battle. Otherwise, he would definitely be in the top 20. Spirit weapons greatly increased the fighting strength of spirit cultivators. However, Leng Shiqi's strength did not increase by much even though he was holding a 5th-level and 7th-level spirit sword. People he could win against, even if he didn't use a sword. People he couldn't win against, even if he used a 7th-level spirit sword, he still couldn't win. Unless he took out a rare spirit weapon like the 8th-level earth weapon, the Thousand Illusion Dao sword, it would have an obvious effect. It could also be said that as Leng Shiqi's strength increased, his state of mind and vision had become very high. Leng Shiqi held the keepsake in his hand and released a series of seals, once again opening the entrance of the heavenly tomb. The last time he came in, he was brought in by Eunuch Gao. Now, his status as one of the 4 great directors of the Dark Thunder Guard and the Spirit Duke was above Eunuch Gao. As for strength, Leng Shiqi was confident that he was definitely not weaker than Eunuch Gao. In such a short period of time, even he was surprised by his growth speed. However, Leng Shiqi was not complacent at all. He was very clear that although his current strength seemed very strong, in the eyes of the world, it was still not enough. He had never wavered in his pursuit of strength. The entrance to the heavenly tomb was opened, and Lung Shiqi felt the power of heaven and earth rushing towards him. He took a deep breath and walked into the heavenly tomb. At the same time, in the imperial palace, Lung Shiqi's soul clone was gathered with Mo Lin Hui and the two clan elders. Clan elder Lei Duan Yi and Lei Duan Hai said at the same time, "Your Majesty, it's time for us to leave." Mo Lin Hui's heart skipped a beat. He naturally knew what the two of them were here for, and now that they had proposed to leave, it meant that they were going to give up their power. It also meant that in their eyes, Lei Haoyan had the qualifications to sit firmly on the dragon throne. Lung Shiqi's soul clone immediately revealed a surprised expression. "Why did the two clan elders say that? I need you to help me with my worries." He was not being polite. He was speaking from the bottom of his heart. What a joke. He had not rested for a day for several months, so there was no need to talk about cultivating and refining the purple crystal frost flame. Therefore, he really hoped that Lei Duan Yi and Lei Duan Hai could stay. They could stay and help him with the country's affairs. He immediately continued, "I know my own limits." This time, the world's first spirit cultivator conference has ended smoothly. Actually, I have long been planning on how to deal with the spirit cultivator sections. However, I do not know much about other important matters, so I hope that the clan elders can lend me a hand. His words were very sincere and instantly moved the two clan elders. The two of them were not young anymore, and they were born in the imperial family. Up until now, they had seen countless scenes of brothers killing each other and father and son turning against each other. Even after Lei Haoyan had ascended the throne and given him power, he was still unwilling. He was still so humble and had a pure heart. It was the fortune of the Thunderfire dynasty to have such an emperor. The soul doppelganger saw that the two clan elders were moved, so he immediately struck while the iron was hot. "Clan elders, Minister Mo, I plan to set up a 3-yuan pavilion in the imperial palace. The three of you will enter the 3-yuan pavilion. In the future, the three of you will look through all the big and small memorials of the Thunderfire dynasty. If you can resolve them after discussion, you can directly approve them. There is no need to present them to me. Only if the three of you feel that you can't make up your mind, we will discuss them together." Lei Duan Yi, Lei Duan Hai, and Mo Lin Hui looked at each other. This 3-yuan pavilion was incredible. It was equivalent to the three of them taking away half of the imperial power. This had never happened before. After all, which emperor would be at ease handing over power to others? Since the emperor in front of them had done so, it meant that he had great trust in the three of them. Just this trust alone made them feel like they were being blessed by the heavens. Mo Lin Hui was the first to kneel on the ground. To be able to gain your Majesty's trust is the fortune of this old subject's life. The two clan elders muttered to themselves, seeming to be a little hesitant. The reason for their hesitation was not that they did not want to agree, but that they had originally planned to give power to Lei Haoyan. In the end, it was the other way around. However, under the sincere gaze of the soul doppelganger, they still nodded. Lei Duan, he said, "Your Majesty, we can agree to the 3-yuan pavilion. If there is a day in the future when your Majesty no longer needs the 3-yuan pavilion, the two of us will immediately leave." The soul doppelganger smiled in his heart. He finally had some time to cultivate. However, just as he was secretly rejoicing, Mo Lin Hui raised his head and said, "Your Majesty, isn't it time to prepare for your concubine selection?" Chapter 770. Recently, although the world's first spirit cultivator assembly had ended, a large number of spirit cultivators were not in a hurry to leave the capital because the Phoenix dance roll selection was about to begin. Especially this time, the Phoenix dance roll was linked to the new emperor's concubine selection, causing countless beauties to break their heads to squeeze in. Of course, There were some who looked down on the position of imperial concubine. Just like 10,000 mysterious sects, Chui Linglong also participated in the Phoenix dance role, but she only went to play. Even if she was chosen as imperial concubine, she would not agree. At this time, in Mo Linhui's study, Mo Yile's eyes were red as she rubbed the corner of her clothes with her fingers, looking very wronged. "Father, do you really want me to marry that Lei Haoyan? How old is he? I don't like him." Mo Linhui looked at his younger daughter, who had a child at an old age, and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. He suddenly sighed, and the wrinkles on his face deepened, making him look like he had aged a few years. He sighed, "My good daughter, to be able to marry into the imperial family and become an imperial concubine is an honor. Do you know how many women outside dream of becoming an imperial concubine? Father knows that you are playful and do not care about status and power. Father also wants you to live a carefree life, but Father is not young anymore. How many more years can I protect you? If Father is no longer here, what will you do?" "No." Mo Yile interrupted Mo Linhui with tears on her face. "Father, you will definitely live a long life." Mo Linhui dotingly patted the back of Mo Yile's head. "Silly child, Father knows my own body best. In recent years, it has been getting worse and worse. Relying on those heavenly treasures to support me for a few more years won't be a problem. So Father wants to pave the way for you in advance. Your cultivation talent is very high. Father originally wanted you to enter the Discipline Commission or the Dark Thunder Guards. Coincidentally, the new emperor has ascended the throne and expanded the harem. This is an excellent opportunity for you. Although you still like to play, you are quick-witted and have cultivation. Ordinary methods are useless against you. In addition, Father is working for you outside. I guarantee that you will be able to sit on the imperial concubine position sooner or later. Even becoming the mother of the world is not impossible." Mo Ilu was displeased. Just as she was about to retort, Mo Linhui raised his hand and said earnestly, "Father knows you're proud and don't care about these things. But have you ever thought, Father has been the prime minister for many years and can be considered a person of virtue and prestige, but there are also many people who want to get rid of me. Your brothers aren't mediocre, but they aren't brave either. Once Father is gone, our Mo family will be in danger. Only when you become the imperial concubine and make the Mo family a relative of the imperial family can the Mo family continue to prosper. Do you understand Father's painstaking efforts?" Mo Linhui's words were like a mountain pressing down on Mo Li's heart. It turned out that the prosperity of the Mo family was on her shoulders. Even though she was extremely unwilling in her heart, she had already tacitly agreed with Mo Linhui's decision. She was playful, had a bad temper, and was somewhat arrogant. It was precisely because she was born into the Mo family that she had the right to be arrogant. Now it was time to repay the Mo family. Mo Li's heart was incomparably sour, but her eyes became much more resolute. "Father, daughter understands. Daughter will listen to your arrangements." Saying these words seemed to use up all the strength in her body. Then she turned around and left. Her frail back made one's heart ache. Mo Linhui didn't stop her because not only did he see Mo Li's pain, but he also saw her growth. "Ilu, don't blame Father. The same thing happened to the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters." Emperor Black Flame also said the same thing to Lien Yi. The difference was that Lien Yi's reaction was very different from Mo Li's. After Lien Yi heard that Emperor Black Flame wanted her to enter the palace, her first words were, "But I already have someone in my heart." Hearing this, Emperor Black Flame was greatly surprised. He had always kept Lien Yi by his side. When did she have someone she liked? Moreover, Emperor Black Flame was the person in charge of the Thunderfire Dynasty's intelligence. If there really was someone close to Lien Yi, he should have already known. Therefore, Emperor Black Flame immediately determined that this was Lien Yi's excuse. He earnestly said, "Lien, do you know what His Majesty said in the Imperial Court today? His Majesty is already prepared for me to hand over my position as Grand Commander. Compared to entering the Imperial family's Hall of Worship to retire, I'm more willing to guard the border. However, if I do that, there will be no one to take care of you. How can I leave in peace? Godfather, I'm no longer a little girl. I can take care of myself. I know you've matured a lot in the past 2 years, but the person who will take over as Grand Commander isn't someone who's content with his lot. He might take care of you on account of me, nurturing him, but he might also secretly pull out my trusted aid. Therefore, it's not suitable for you to continue staying in the Dark Thunder Guard. Emperor Black Flame frowned. Lienyi became curious. Just who could shake Emperor Black Flame's position as Grand Commander and make him feel such dread? Godfather, who is this person you're talking about? Emperor Black Flame's tone turned serious. He's one of the 4 Grand Commanders of the Dark Thunder Guard who proposed the First Spirit Cultivator Conference, Lu Xingji. It's him. Lienya's mouth opened slightly as she shouted in astonishment. That's right. He's currently deeply trusted by His Majesty. His Majesty is preparing to vigorously nurture Lu Xingji to become his trusted aide. You've interacted with Lu Xingji before, so you should know what kind of person he is. Wherever he goes, there will always be an endless vortex lingering around. Actually, this kind of person isn't suitable to be the Grand Commander of the Dark Thunder Guard. Speaking of which, he's more suitable for the Discipline Commission. However, since His Majesty has already made up his mind, even I can't change it. That's why he had you enter the palace. You once said that you wanted to marry someone with a powerful cultivation and resourcefulness. The current His Majesty has a cultivation at the late stage of unity of heaven and man realm. In just a few short months, he obtained the approval of all the ministers and firmly sat on the dragon throne. Could it be that you're still not satisfied? But, Lienyi suddenly stuttered, a strange expression on her face. She softly muttered, then wouldn't Lu Xingji be even more outstanding? Although her voice was soft, who is Emperor Black Flame? Of course, he clearly heard these words. He asked in amazement, Lienyi, could it be that you've taken a fancy to that Lu Xingji? I don't know. Perhaps it's just a bit of worship. Lienyi revealed the secret in her heart. She hadn't had much contact with Lung Shiqi, but she had watched Lung Shiqi's astonishing growth step by step. She had also witnessed Lung Shiqi's wisdom and courage. In any case, in her eyes, there was no one who could compare to Lung Shiqi. Emperor Black Flame was silent for a moment before saying, Lu Xingji is indeed a peerless genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. His future achievements are limitless. He definitely won't stop at being the Grand Commander of the Dark Thunder Guard. However, you have to know, how great can his power be? When his ambition isn't satisfied, who knows what he'll do? He's too dangerous and not suitable for you. Lienyi quietly smiled. Adoptive father, what are you thinking? At most, I have a good impression of him. I've never thought of being together with him. That's good. Emperor Black Flame's face relaxed. A trace of craftiness flashed through Lienyi's eyes. However, there's no need for me to marry Lei Haoyan. Even if he wants you to leave the Dark Thunder Guard and travel the world, it might not be a bad thing. Rather than going to the palace to be a canary in a cage, I'd rather be a free little bird. Emperor Black Flame's expression stiffened again. So you've been waiting for me here. That's fine. It's good that you're far away from the great maelstrom that is the imperial capital. As long as you're happy, your adoptive father will be satisfied. Lienyi sweetly smiled, but in her heart, she thought, perhaps I should go find him. Chapter 771. 3 days later, the Phoenix Dance Roll was made public along with the Dragon Roll. This time, the people in the imperial capital had a feast for their eyes. The competition for the Phoenix Dance Roll was really a feast for the eyes. In the end, the Phoenix Dance Roll set 100 places. Different from the Dragon Roll, the Phoenix Dance Roll did not have rankings. After all, beauties had different styles, so it was not easy to compare in detail. And among these 100 beauties, 6 were selected to enter the palace and become the new emperor's imperial concubines. Among the 6, 3 were daughters of ministers in the imperial court, and Mo Yile was one of them. The other three were disciples of spirit cultivation sections. It was worth mentioning that the three all came from first-class sections. This was what the soul doppelganger had pondered. He didn't like the weak sects, and the top sects would definitely not let them go. The most suitable ones were the first-class forces. In addition, there were 4 daughters of dukes and marquises entering the palace. This time, there were 10 more imperial concubines in the imperial harem, which was reasonable. Of course, with more people in the imperial harem, there would be more things to do, but these things would be a headache for the soul doppelganger. In a restaurant on the edge of the inner city of the imperial capital, Tang Wanxiu was packing up and preparing to return to Donglin County. Although she was not selected in the World First Spirit Cultivator Conference, her talent and strength were good, so some forces still threw her an olive branch. Because she cared about her mother, she refused them one by one and planned to return to Donglin County to make plans. Anyway, the Tang family was no longer there, so she had freedom. Besides, with her strength, no matter which force she went to, she would be welcomed. However, just as she walked out of the restaurant, a young man stopped her with a smile. Behind the young man stood 5 people, all of whom were in the gang spirit realm. It could be seen that this person's identity was extraordinary. Tang Wanxiu frowned and asked warily, "We don't seem to know each other. Why do you stop me? How dare you?" A person behind the young man immediately shouted, "This is Lord He, the eunuch of the Dark Thunder Guard, and he is the trusted subordinate of Steward Liu. How dare you talk to Lord He like this? I think you are the one who is presumptuous." He Feichin twisted and scolded the man. "This Miss Tang is the guest that Lord Liu wants to invite. Slap her." The man was stunned. In the Dark Thunder Guard, didn't invite me to take someone away? Now it seemed that he was really here to invite someone. Pa. The man had no choice but to symbolically slap himself twice. He secretly hated himself for his cheap mouth and could only swallow this grievance. He Feichin turned his head around, his face full of smiles. "Miss Tang, please don't misunderstand. My family's lord specially sent me to invite Miss Tang into the residence for a chat." Tang Wanxiu couldn't wrap her head around this. Ever since she entered the imperial city, she had heard about the legendary deeds of Chief Steward Liu. He had only used a mere 2 years to go from envoy inspector to one of the 4 great chief stewards. She had heard that the world's first Spirit Cultivator Conference was also organized by this Lord Liu behind the scenes. Why would such a powerful figure invite her? She looked at He Feichin, who had a fake smile on his face, and then looked at those gang spirit realm experts with unkind eyes. It seemed that she had no other choice. She gritted her teeth and said, "Lead the way. Miss Tang, this way, please." He Feichin brought Tang Wanxiu all the way to the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters next door. There was a majestic residence here. Above the gilded door, the words Junling Residence were engraved. This was the residence that Lung Shiqi was bestowed after he was conferred the title of Junling Residence. If he wasn't dealing with matters now, he would stay here. At this time, Lung Shiqi had just come out of the heavenly tomb, and his cultivation had already reached the late stage of unity of heaven and man realm. His greatest gain in the heavenly tomb was actually not his cultivation, but that he had finally found the missing link to make up for his lack of comprehension of the heaven and earth lock. The heavenly tomb was almost completely filled with the consciousness and cultivation experience left behind by sky origin experts. Naturally, there are also a large number of methods to quickly cultivate in the unity of heaven and man realm. Lung Shiqi had found a method that belonged to him, and that was to push back the power of the elements of heaven and earth. The power of the laws of heaven and earth, the power of heaven and earth, and the elemental power of heaven and earth were on a completely different level. Now that he had comprehended the power of the laws of heaven and earth, what he needed the most was the weakest of the 3, the elemental power of heaven and earth. So he thought of pushing back the power of heaven and earth. That was to use the power of the laws of heaven and earth to command the elemental power to do his bidding. For example, he had already grasped a trace of the law of earth, so he could use the law of earth to control the earth elemental power within a large range. He had also used this method to break through to the late stage of unity of heaven and man realm in a short 3 days. At the same time, his four spirits diagram also contained the power of the four elements, and the flowing dragon great void contained the power of yin and yang. As long as he had enough time, he would be able to cultivate to the peak of unity of heaven and man realm without any obstacles. And he felt that it wouldn't take long. So he had some time to deal with his biggest problem, Meng Tianzong. Actually, before looking for Tang Wanxiu, Lung Shiqi had already secretly contacted Bing Shang. He found out that Bing Shang's cultivation had also increased by leaps and bounds after leaving the illusory spirit secret realm. Because of this, he was noticed by Ink Frost Ghostman and was taken in as a disciple. Bing Shang and Lung Shiqi were similar in that when they were in the spirit vein realm, their spirit veins would open on their own. When they were in the spirit aperture realm, their spirit veins would open on their own. This was why Bing Shang was able to progress so quickly. Lung Shiqi thought that Tang Wanxiu was similar to them, so he wanted to ask her about it. However, before Tang Wanxiu came, Lin Yi came to find him. Lung Shiqi looked from afar and saw that Lin Yi's cultivation was the same as Bing Shang's, at the peak of Spirit Aperture Realm. However, her ranking on the Wandering Dragon ranking was far lower than Bing Shang. This meant that Bing Shang's battle experience far surpassed Lin Yi's. Coincidentally, Lin Yi also came out of the illusory spirit secret realm, so he could test her. "Miss Lin Yi, please come in." Lung Shiqi personally came up to greet her. Lin Yi's footsteps paused. She looked at Lung Shiqi strangely and said, "I heard you are about to become the Grand Commander." "You can't say that. His Majesty has decreed that I can only become the Grand Commander after I break through to the Sky Origin Realm. I admit that my talents are not bad, but I'm still too far away from the Sky Origin Realm. Maybe I won't be able to reach that height in this lifetime." Lung Shiqi thought that Lin Yi was here to cause trouble, so he was a bit humble. Lin Yi rolled her eyes and said, "I only came today to ask you one question. Miss Lin Yi, please go ahead." Lin Yi seemed to casually ask, "You are one of the 4 great managers of the Dark Thunder Guards, the future Grand Commander, and also the Spirit Duke. You are also favored by His Majesty. Not only do you have great power, but you also have unlimited possibilities. It can be said that as a man, your achievements are something that countless people can't compare to in their entire lives. Have you ever thought about getting married?" Lung Shiqi didn't know what Lin Yi was trying to do. She went around in a big circle just to ask him if he wanted to get married or not. Where did this come from? Lung Shiqi didn't plan on hiding this point and said truthfully, "A man's ambition is to travel far. I have never thought about getting married." Why does Miss Lin Yi ask this? Even if Lung Shiqi had someone he liked, he knew that it was too easy for him to cause trouble. There was still an endless path of cultivation waiting for him. Before he had the strength to establish himself in the world, he wouldn't consider this matter. Hearing this answer, Lin Yi's heart tightened, but then she relaxed. She immediately turned around and said, "Sorry to disturb you. Goodbye." Just as she turned around, He Fei Chun brought Tang Wanxiu over. "Sir, this subordinate has invited Miss Tang here." "Oh, greetings, Miss Lin Yi." Lin Yi's footsteps stopped, and she stared at Tang Wanxiu. Strangely, she didn't remember seeing this person before, but she had a feeling of déjà vu. Tang Wanxiu also had a similar feeling when she looked at Lin Yi. Lung Shiqi secretly gave He Fei Chun a look, and He Fei Chun tactfully slipped away. He walked between the two and said, "The two of you haven't seen each other for a long time. How about we catch up?" Chapter 772. Reminisce? What did the three of them have to reminisce about? Lin Yi and Tang Wanxiu were puzzled, but they both had a feeling that they had seen each other before. This was too strange. Lung Shiqi stretched out his hand and said, "This is not the place to talk. Let's talk in my study." The two women hesitated for a moment before following Lung Shiqi to his study. The study wasn't very big, but there were dozens of formations and barriers set up inside and outside the study to ensure the safety and secrecy of this place. Sit. Lung Shiqi simply greeted the two. If I'm not wrong, you both think you've never seen each other before, but in fact, not only have you seen each other, but you've also fought side by side. As soon as these words came out, the two women were shocked. They didn't know about this, so how could others know? A few years ago, we both entered the same place, the illusory spirit secret realm. Lung Shiqi said solemnly, but he suddenly remembered something. Right? I forgot to introduce you. This is the adopted daughter of the Dark Thunder Guard's commander, Miss Lian Yi. And this is Miss Tang Wanxiu from Donglin County's Tang family. Unfortunately, the Tang family no longer exists. Tang Wanxiu couldn't help but be shocked when she heard that Lian Yi was actually Heavenly Sovereign Black Flame's adopted daughter. The two people sitting in front of her had a higher status than the other. How could an ordinary woman like her have anything to do with them? However, when it came to the illusory spirit secret realm, Tang Wanxiu also remembered it, but she had no impression of Lung Shiqi and Lian Yi. Lian Yi said softly, Tang Wanxiu, I think I've heard this name before. You did enter the illusory spirit secret realm. Lung Shiqi said, it's not your fault that Miss Tang doesn't know Lian Yi, because at that time, Miss Lian Yi always wore a black veil and went in as a rogue cultivator. Speaking of this, Tang Wanxiu finally recalled that when she entered the illusory spirit secret realm, there were 10 rogue cultivators who participated, including a woman with a black veil. But she never thought that person would be Heavenly Sovereign Black Flame's adopted daughter. But in Tang Wanxiu's memories, she seemed to have never had any interactions with Lian Yi. At this time, Lung Shiqi pointed at himself, attracting the attention of the two. He took out a human skin mask and put on his face. In an instant, he turned into an old-fashioned and serious middle-aged man. Upon seeing his face, the two women said at the same time, Zuiqiu Yu. In fact, Lian Yi was not very surprised. She had guessed Lung Shiqi's disguise when she was in the elite club of Donglin County. Tang Wanxiu was even more surprised, because Zuiqiu Yu had been standing by Lian Yi's side all those years ago. Now, it would seem that those two independent cultivators were actually figures of extraordinary status. But why did they want to enter the illusory spirit secret realm? There shouldn't be anything inside that could attract the two of them. Lung Shiqi took off his mask and said, it's like this. He then told her everything that had happened in the different space, including the countless corpses, the powerful resentful spirits, and the strong man from 10,000 years ago, Meng Tianzong. When Lung Shiqi finished speaking, Lian Yi and Tang Wanxiu did not react at all. They did not remember what they had experienced at all, but Lung Shiqi's words did not seem to be nonsense. Moreover, there was no need for Lung Shiqi to make up such a big lie to deceive them. Then why did they not remember what they had experienced in the past? Lung Shiqi knew the biggest doubt in their hearts. So he replied, that's because Meng Tianzong tampered with your memories, and I was lucky enough to survive because of my strong mental power, but it almost caused the collapse of the spiritual space. Tampering with memories. The two women covered their red lips and turned pale with fright. Not only was the legendary Meng Tianzong not dead, but he could also tamper with their memories without them noticing. What kind of terrifying method was this? What kind of terrifying person was this? If what you said is true, then why didn't Meng Tianzong just kill us? Why did he go through so much trouble? Lian Yi calmed down first, and she keenly found the most important question. Lung Shiqi wasn't in a hurry to answer. Instead, he asked, before that, I want to ask you something. When you were in the Spirit Meridian stage and Spirit Aperture stage, did you somehow manage to open your Spirit Meridians and Spirit Apertures? Especially Miss Tang, if I remember correctly, you used external items to forcefully break through to the Spirit Pulse realm. Logically speaking, your cultivation path should have stopped at the Spirit Pulse realm, but not only did you cultivate to the Spirit Aperture realm, you also cultivated very quickly. Have you never thought about the reason? Could it be that you were also like this? Lian Yi looked at Lung Shiqi and Tang Wanxiu and said in surprise, that's right. It's just as Steward Lu said. I thought it was because I accidentally obtained some opportunity in the illusory spirit's secret realm. Tang Wanqiu frowned and said, from what Steward Lu said, there seems to be something fishy going on. Lung Shiqi nodded and said, if it was only one person, it would be reasonable to say that it was an opportunity. But it was not only the three of us. According to the investigation of my subordinates, the people who came out of the Phantom Spirit's secret realm made rapid progress in cultivation. For example, Elder Wuxiao of the Golden Broadsword Hall, he is quite old. Not to mention making further progress. It is already very good for him to keep his qi and blood from declining. But as far as I know, he is already in the gang spirit realm. It can be seen that everyone who finally left the Phantom Spirit's secret realm is like this. This sentence sent a chill down Lin Yi and Tang Wanqiu's backs. Meng Tianzong could kill tens of thousands of his disciples, so it was absolutely impossible for him to be so kind as to give them an opportunity. Maybe Meng Tianzong took advantage of this opportunity to do something to them. You could say that the peerless master 10,000 years ago didn't care about them at all, but it didn't mean that there was no such possibility. This was especially true when Lung Shiqi spoke of everything in such a serious manner today, which further confirmed this point. At present, I haven't found any abnormality in my body, but it's always good to prepare for a rainy day. So I hope you should pay attention to your own situation all the time. Once there is a problem, immediately tell each other. Lung Shiqi looked at Tang Wanqiu and said, Miss Tang, the Tang family has been destroyed, and I am deeply sorry. In this case, you might as well join the Dark Thunder Guards. With your ability, it is not a problem for you to be the inspector. In addition, I will take your family to the imperial capital and take good care of them. Tang Wanqiu didn't refuse. What Lung Shiqi proposed was of great benefit to her in all aspects, so she agreed without hesitation. When Lung Shiqi was about to continue speaking, Ren Ye's anxious voice came from outside the study. Your Excellency, urgent information. Lung Shiqi looked dignified and stood up with a swish. The two girls left wisely. Ren Yi took out a piece of information and handed it to Lung Shiqi. There was only one line in it. A beast tide broke out in the demonic Miasma Mountains. Chapter 773. Beast Tide. Lung Shiqi naturally knew about the beast tide. Back when he was in the demonic Miasma Mountain range, he had thought that a beast tide had broken out. However, that was just a disturbance caused by 9 Leave preparing for his tribulation. The people of the Imperial Beast Camp and the Blood Beast sect took advantage of it. Last time, the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters had probably received similar information, but they had also discovered the intentions of the Imperial Beast Abode and the Blood Beast sect. In any case, they would settle the matter of the demonic Miasma Mountain range, so the Dark Thunder Guard naturally couldn't be bothered to interfere. However, it was completely different this time. Lung Shiqi asked, is the information reliable? How could there be a beast tide in the demonic Miasma Mountains? Master, the information is absolutely true. The spirit cultivators near the demon-suppressing demon city have suffered heavy casualties. Fortunately, the demon-suppressing demon city is strong enough, and the city guards are not weak. Only then were they able to block the many spirit beasts that erupted. Ren Yi said in a heavy tone. This was actually true. Lung Shiqi knew that this was no small matter. Last time, it was just a fake beast horde, but they had mobilized nearby troops to reinforce the demon-suppressing city. It was clear that the Thunderfire dynasty attached great importance to the demonic Miasma Mountain range. But then again, this might not be a good opportunity to make a contribution. If the Thunderfire dynasty was at peace, where would he, as the chief steward, get any merits? He turned around and asked, have you found out the reason for the beast tide outbreak? At this moment, a trace of disbelief appeared on Ren Ye's face, and he said, it said that a rank 7 great demon appeared in the depths of the demonic Miasma mountain range. And it's not just one. Impossible. Lung Shiqi blurted out. A few years ago, a rank 7 great demon like 9, leave appearing in the demonic Miasma mountain range was already a once-in-a-century occurrence. How long had it been since then? How could another rank 7 great demon be born? Not to mention that there was more than one. If the demon Miasma mountain range had so many rank 7 great demons, it would not have been reduced to the 3 great dynasties back garden. Your humble servant also felt that it was very strange, but there were indeed 2 7th-order great demons in the demonic Miasma mountain range. At that time, there just happened to be an expert from the imperial family's hall of worship nearby. He entered the demonic Miasma mountain range alone and almost died there. Only then did he obtain this information. Renyi explained. His tone was filled with seriousness. Lung Shiqi knocked on the armrest of the chair. There was something strange about this matter. No matter how he looked at it, it was definitely not simple. Since I've gotten the information, Your Majesty must have gotten it even earlier. I'm guessing that I'll have to enter the palace for a discussion soon. Renyi, I will take the initiative to go and investigate the beast tide in the demonic Miasma mountain range. Xingji Pavilion and Zhenling Manor will need you to take care of them. Hearing this, Renyi was shocked. My lord, you can't. The current demonic Miasma mountain range is not only dangerous, it is also like a deep pool whose bottom cannot be seen clearly. This lowly subordinate believes that there is no need for my lord to take the risk. Lung Shiqi shook his head and said, Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Besides, other than me, there will also be others who will take the initiative to go to the Miasma mountain range. The beast tide this time is indeed dangerous, but it is also an opportunity. I've already made up my mind. You don't have to persuade me anymore. Your humble servant obeys. Renyi knew that no one could change Lung Shiqi's decision, so he could only obey. As Lung Shiqi expected, he was soon summoned to the palace to discuss the beast tide in the demonic Miasma mountain range. Under the double play of Lung Shiqi and the Soul Doppelganger, he still took the task this time. In order to completely stop the beast tide, the Thunderstorm Dynasty would adopt a 3-pronged approach. The first one was to immediately summon the Discipline Commission, Dark Thunder Guards, and a large number of city guards in the surrounding counties to support the demon-suppressing town. The second one was to directly mobilize the combat army, like last time. As for the third one, it was Lung Shiqi. This time, Lung Shiqi would go to the demonic Miasma mountain range with 2 deputy directors and the War Thunder Guards under his command. There were a total of 7 masters in the oneness of heaven, more than 40 in the gang spirit realm, and hundreds in the spiritual aperture realm and spiritual pulse realm. In addition, the most powerful combat force was actually not them, but the 2 masters in the Tianyuan realm from the Imperial Hall of Worship. Now, there was another master in the demon-suppressing town. Lung Shiqi just learned that the man was the old man he was familiar with. After they destroyed the Thousand Illusion Sword sect in Donglin County, the old man had not returned to the imperial capital. Later, when they passed by the demonic Miasma mountain range, they happened to encounter the beast tide outbreak. He took the risk alone with his powerful strength, but who would have thought that he would run into 2 level 7 monsters? In the end, the old man had to pay a hefty price to escape. Fortunately, his injury was not very serious. With him in the demon-suppressing town, nothing serious would happen for a while. In addition, the Thunderstorm Dynasty's combat army would also send another master in the Tianyuan realm. This time, a total of 4 masters in the Tianyuan realm would gather in the demonic Miasma mountain range. Even if there were 2 level 7 monsters, it was not a big deal. Level 7 monsters' combat strength was very strong, even stronger than most masters who had just entered the Tianyuan realm. However, their weakness was also very obvious. They rarely had powerful spiritual treasures or were proficient in various secret techniques. 2 of the 4 Heavenly Origin Realm experts from the Thunderblaze Dynasty were proficient in formations. As long as they didn't know about the formation beforehand, and with their high-grade spiritual energy and strange secret techniques, it wouldn't be a problem for them to kill the 2 Class 7 demons. In particular, the 2 Level 7 monsters had just transformed and were not yet able to fully control their strength. Therefore, the Thunderstorm dynasty had an overwhelming advantage in terms of peak combat strength. Lung Shiqi's subordinates and the experts gathered from various places were the backbone of the army. Their main targets were the level 5 and level 6 monsters. As for the level 4 monsters, they would be left to the combat army. After Lung Shiqi received the order, he immediately gathered his men and prepared to rush to the demon-suppressing town through the interdomain teleportation formation. However, at this time, there was some movement in the underworld. Someone was using the Netherlamp illusion to contact him, and that person was the Delta Orgi. Lung Shiqi knew that the Delta Orgi went into seclusion after coming out of the Void Scar sky. It seemed that she had come out. He returned to the study and entered the underworld. At this time, the Delta Orgi in the underworld appeared in the form of Yuan Yang Ming Yu Ghost Emperor. Due to the underworld's upgrade, there was a huge change here. The Delta Orgi was looking around. When Lung Shiqi appeared, the Delta Orgi said, "I've encountered some trouble." Hearing this, Lung Shiqi's heart moved. He knew that the Delta Orgi was a very strong person. Even if she encountered trouble, she would not easily ask for help. The Delta Orgi came to Lung Shiqi on her own. This meant that the trouble was not small. Lung Shiqi nodded. The Delta Orgi continued. The Cloud Shuttle Monarch's disciple, Yin Xingxing, recently broke through to the unity of heaven and man realm. He kept begging the Cloud Shuttle Monarch to come over and propose marriage. I'm annoyed. Lung Shiqi remembered that he seemed to have seen this person in the Void Scar sky. It was a white-faced youth. At this moment, killing intent appeared in his heart. It was just a spirit cultivator who had just entered the unity of heaven and man realm. It was not a big deal to assassinate him silently. Thus, he said solemnly, "Do you want to kill him?" Chapter 774. Delta Orgi paused. She did not expect that Lung Shiqi would want to kill Yun Xingxing directly. She said, "That's not necessary. There is a rumor in the Discipline Commission that Monarch Cloud Shuttle is about to step down from his position as the Grand Commander. Yun Xingxing just wants to use him as his last backer. Moreover, killing the personal disciple of the Discipline Commission's Grand Commander in the Imperial capital is not a small matter. It's enough to teach him a lesson." Lung Shiqi wanted to say that he could do it flawlessly, but on second thought, Yin Xingxing's actions in the Discipline Commission were all above board. He proposed marriage to Delta Orgi and then died. The biggest suspect was naturally Delta Orgi. Yin Xingxing's head will be put on his head for now, he thought to himself. At this time, Lung Shiqi noticed that Delta Orgi's cultivation was already at the 7th level of Gang's spirit realm. Last time in the Void Scar sky, Delta Orgi's cultivation was still at the 2nd level of Gang's spirit realm. In less than a year, she had reached the late stage of Gang's spirit realm. Of course, her cultivation speed was not as fast as Lung Shiqi's, but it was already rare among her peers, even in the whole Falling Star continent. The reason why Delta Orgi's cultivation speed was so fast was also greatly related to Lung Shiqi. Last time when they entered the Tomb of Heaven together, Lung Shiqi specially chose the most suitable cultivation comprehension for Delta Orgi. Later, Delta Orgi joined the underworld and directly received the inheritance of the Ghost Emperors of 5 directions. Her strength increased greatly. When Lung Shiqi became one of the 4 directors, he also gave Delta Orgi a lot of cultivation resources. Coupled with Delta Orgi's superb cultivation talent, it was not impossible for her to make such progress. However, Lung Shiqi did not say anything about cultivation, because his own realm was a whole realm higher than Delta Orgi's. If the Delta Orgi were to find out about this, they would most likely be furious. Coincidentally, Lung Shiqi thought a good idea. He said, "Since it's not a good time to kill him, let's avoid him first." In the past 2 days, there has been a beast tide in the demonic Miasma mountain range. I am gathering people to quell it. I will ask for some people from the Discipline Commission. You will come with me to the demonic Miasma mountain range. Demonic Miasma mountain range. That's fine too. I've stayed in the Imperial capital for too long. It's time for me to go out for a walk. Delta Orgy agreed, but she immediately asked, "What if Yin Xingxing goes with them?" "Don't worry." Lung Shiqi smiled gently and said, "I only want spirit cultivators in the gang spirit realm from the discipline department. I can't ask for higher or lower realms. As a general manager who has the power to act as the commander, I still have this bit of face. No matter where you are, you will shine. I'm not as good as you." Delta Orgy said faintly. She did not wait for Lung Shiqi to answer and removed the underworld lamp illusion. Lung Shiqi touched his nose. Sometimes being too good was also a trouble. After leaving the underworld, Lung Shiqi personally went to the headquarters of the Discipline Commission to meet with Monarch Cloud Shuttle. He explained his intentions. Monarch Cloud Shuttle was very straightforward. Without saying anything, he was willing to lend Lung Shiqi a total of 20 Gang Spirit Realm Masters. One must know that Gang Spirit Realm Masters were not cabbages on the roadside. They were masters who could support second-rate sex outside. Moreover, the masters of the Discipline Commission had always been famous for their fighting strength. They were even better than the War Thunder Guards of the Dark Thunder Guards. In order not to be so obvious, Lung Shiqi personally selected a few people, including Delta Orgy and Jugapua. When he mentioned Delta Orgy, Monarch Cloud Shuttle obviously hesitated, but still agreed. Monarch Cloud Shuttle knew that his time as the commander of the Discipline Commission was running out. On the other hand, Lung Shiqi had infinite potential. It was unknown how long he could be in charge of the Dark Thunder Guards in the future. There was no need to make enemies with Lung Shiqi for the sake of his apprentice's personal interests. After this matter was settled, Lung Shiqi returned to the Dark Thunder Guards after some polite greetings. In Xingji Pavilion, thousands of masters were standing in order, waiting for him. Lung Shiqi waved his hand. "Let's go." A group of people walked in the direction of the interdomain transmission formation. On the streets of the imperial capital, all the people who met them consciously made way for them. The outbreak of the Beast Tide in the demonic Miasma Mountains had been known to the public. The news that Lung Shiqi received the order to suppress the Beast Tide was also announced. Everyone looked at Lung Shiqi's group with admiration. These Dark Thunder Guards were going to suppress the Beast Tide to save the people. But the Beast Tide was dangerous. How many people could come back safely? Therefore, although people hated the Dark Thunder Guards at ordinary times, they still hoped that they could all come back triumphantly at this time. When Lung Shiqi and others came to the interdomain transmission formation, the 20 masters of the Gang Spirit Realm of the Discipline Commission also arrived. The leader was Delta Orgy. She stood in the middle of the crowd in a bright red dress. Her jade-white neck was slightly raised like a proud swan. Lung Shiqi smiled and said, "Miss Bloodmoon, Brother Zhuge, we can fight side by side again." Delta Orgy said lightly, "Don't worry. The Discipline Commission won't hold Supervisor Liu back." Zhuge Puha's eyes were a little strange. He said, "Long time no see, Supervisor Liu." But he secretly transmitted a message. "Brother Liu, I happen to have something to discuss with you." Lung Shiqi knew it was about the Star Tribe. Last time in Shantai County, he helped the Star Tribe release 2 masters of the oneness of heaven and men realm. It seemed that Zhuge Yun was not satisfied with this. He gave a subtle hint with his eyes, and then led the crowd into the transmission formation. As for the other 2 masters of the Tianyuan realm, they had already rushed to the demon-suppressing town in advance for fear of unexpected problems. After several turns, they finally arrived at the demon-suppressing town late at night. Lei Yuanwu, the commander of the city guards of the demon-suppressing town, and 2 deputy commanders came to welcome them in person. The 3 of them bowed and said, "Supervisor Liu." Supervisor Liu and the masters came to the rescue of the demon-suppressing town. "We can see that you care about the people. We admire you." Lung Shiqi looked at the 3 people who bowed. He thought that he had once joined the city guards of the demon-suppressing town in disguise. At that time, he had to look up to these 3 people when he had to go out of the city to suppress the evil beasts. A few years had passed, and Lei Yuanwu was still Lei Yuanwu, but Lung Shiqi was already someone they had to look up to. Lung Shiqi did not put on airs. Lei Yuanwu in front of him was at the same cultivation level as him, the latter stage of the oneness of heaven and men realm. However, Lei Yuanwu was a distant relative of the royal family, and his status was not low. He was most concerned about the current situation of the demonic Miasma mountain range. He waved his hand and said, "Commander Lei, there is no need to be so polite. We are here under orders to protect the demon-suppressing town and even remove all the hidden dangers in the demonic Miasma mountain range. May I ask, what is the situation in the demonic Miasma mountain range now?" Lei Yuanwu straightened up and said, "Supervisor Liu, please come to the meeting hall for a chat. The higher-ups of the demon-suppressing town are waiting for you there." Let's go." However, they had only taken a few steps when there was a series of shocking roars outside the demon-suppressing town. Immediately, several extremely terrifying spiritual auras came one after another. The night sky twisted, as if doomsday had arrived. Chapter 775. Everyone who was walking stopped in their tracks. They looked in the direction of the demonic Miasma mountain range in shock. Who was it that could cause such a terrifying fluctuation? Lung Shiqi opened his eyes and vaguely saw 4 spiritual chi erupting like volcanoes. 2 of them were in the shape of humans, and the other 2 were demonic beasts. He immediately realized that the 2 sky origin stage cultivators from the Imperial Hall of Worship must have encountered the 7th rank demonic beasts. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel a little dissatisfied. The 2 of them rashly entered the demonic Miasma Mountains and alerted the enemy. He originally planned to go in himself to find out the situation and then set up a formation to kill the 7th rank demonic beasts with the help of the 4 sky origin stage cultivators. But now his plan was completely disrupted by the 2 of them. He couldn't help cursing. What were the 2 from the Imperial Hall of Worship doing here? At this moment, a bolt of lightning flashed, and a man appeared in the sky above them. It was the old man. The old man's face was still a little pale. For a sky origin stage cultivator to have such a pale face, it meant that he was still injured. The old man cursed in front of everyone, "2 brainless bastards. Big brother old Han, what happened?" Lung Shiqi greeted old Han when he saw him. "Brother Liu, you are already here. It's all because of Zhongzhen Liang and Lan Ruo." The old man's face became more and more gloomy. He continued, "I told them that the 2 7th-ranked demonic beasts were not easy to deal with. They didn't listen. They thought they had some tricks up their sleeves and still went in. I heard that they were going to set up some inhibition formations. Now it seems that they still alerted the 2 7th-rank demonic beasts. They are so stupid to have alerted the enemy." Lung Shiqi felt a bit of a headache. Since his plan had failed, it seemed that the only way left was to attack. He asked, "Old brother, what's the background of those 2 7th-order great demons? Why did 2 great demons suddenly appear in the demonic Miasma mountain range?" This was also what Lung Shiqi was puzzled about. The old man replied, "The 2 big demons are the mixed devil sable and the heavenly winged tiger. They were originally rank 6 demonic beasts in the demonic Miasma mountain range for a long time. I don't know when they became rank 7 big demons. However, none of the experts in the demon-subduing citadel had ever sensed the aura of a heavenly tribulation, so no one knew how they advanced. The last time I went in to explore, I was ambushed by the mixed demon sable and the heavenly winged tiger. If it weren't for my thunder technique restraining the demonic beasts and the loss of a trump card, I almost couldn't come back. What bad luck." And Lung Shiqi actually heard about the demon sable from the old man's mouth. He remembered very clearly that it was Nine Leave who had secretly brought him to the spirit spring of the Chaos Demon Black Sable to break through to the spirit vein realm. At that time, he had used all his means to escape and had almost died at the hands of the old sable. Who would have thought that after a few years, that old mink actually advanced to become a rank 7 great demon? This time, Lung Shiqi had come to kill these 2 7th-order great demons. Speaking of which, it was truly a small world. Since the old man had fought with the mixed demon black sable and the heavenly winged tiger, he must know their strength. Lung Shichi asked, "How powerful are these two rank 7 great demons? Do they have any special abilities?" Speaking of this, the old man looked serious and said in a heavy tone, "It's strange. A few years ago, there was a rank 7 great demon in the demonic Miasma Mountains, and now there are 2 more. Moreover, the mixed demon black sable and the heavenly winged tiger have advanced not long ago, but they are very powerful. If it's one-on-one, I can barely defeat one of them." Lung Shichi's heart sank. He had seen the old man's strength. The old man was an experienced expert in the Tianyuan realm and definitely ranked above the middle level. However, this level of expert was only slightly stronger than the mixed demon black sable and the heavenly winged tiger. Even if demonic beasts were born with great strength, they should not be so powerful. There are so many strange things in here. Lung Shichi thought to himself. He felt that things were much more troublesome than he had imagined when he first came to the demon-suppressing town. Lei Yuanwu, the commander of the city guards, bowed to the old man and said, "Shall we rescue the 2 masters in the hall of worship?" "Humph." The old man snorted, "Save my ass. It's good to let them suffer a little. They have been in the hall of worship for a long time, so they don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. But we don't need to worry about their safety. After all, they are in the Tianyuan realm. They won't be in danger so easily. At most, they will be injured." Everyone looked at each other. This old man's heart was quite big. Since he had already said so, no one could say anything else. Lung Shichi said, "Since that's the case, we'll listen to Elder Brother. Those 2 experts might be able to bring back some useful information. Let's go to the city lord's mansion first." Lei Yuanwu turned around and led everyone into the mayor's mansion. The rest of the people had also settled down. Lung Shichi and a few of the upper echelons of the Dark Thunder Guards sat in the meeting hall. There were already more than 10 people waiting inside. Sitting at the top was an old man with many age spots on his face. He looked like he could pass out at any moment. Lei Yuanwu introduced, "This is the city lord of the demon-suppressing town. City Lord Qi. This is the Dark Thunder Guard's Chief Steward Liu." Lung Shichi looked at the City Lord Qi. He knew that the City Lord Qi was called the Old City Lord by the people here because he had been in this position for 60 to 70 years. During this period of time, the demon-suppressing town had experienced 2 beast tides, and he was the one who took the lead to fight against the demonic beasts, defending the demon-suppressing town time and time again. Therefore, whether it was the residents of the demon-suppressing town, the spirit cultivator, or the officials, they all had great respect for him. "Greetings, City Lord Qi." Lung Shichi cupped his hands. In terms of status, he was far higher than City Lord Qi, but in the demon-suppressing town, he could not use his status to suppress others. "This old one is unable to move, so I am unable to salute Chief Steward Liu. Please forgive me." City Lord Qi's voice was old and weak. "City Lord Qi is too kind. Just now, something happened in the demon Miasma mountain range. Chief Steward Liu came in time. Everyone in the demon-suppressing town will listen to Lord Liu's orders. Just give the order." City Lord Qi's words were equivalent to handing over all the authority in the demon-suppressing town. This was a little out of Lung Shichi's expectations. However, this was even better. It would save him the trouble of scheming against each other. At this juncture, he did not have the time to do so. He immediately sat beside City Lord Qi and said, "Everyone, we have come to the demon-suppressing town to settle the beast tide as soon as possible and protect the peace of the demon-suppressing town. Let's not waste any more time. I need the latest information on the demon Miasma mountain range." City Lord Qi's eyes moved. He swept his gaze across the upper echelons of the demon-suppressing town. These people immediately started talking at once. Not long later, 2 rays of light suddenly flashed and entered the meeting hall. When the light faded, 2 slightly wretched figures were revealed. They were the experts of the Imperial Family Hall of Consecration, Zhongzhen Liang and Lan Ruo. Lung Shichi's face darkened. He said coldly, The two of you, do you know your crimes? Chapter 776. Zhong Jinliang and Lan Ruo's already ugly expression sank again. Their status in the Imperial Hall of Worship of the Thunder Flame Dynasty was extraordinary. Anyone who saw them would have to be polite. Even Lei Changjun in the past was like this. It had been a long time since someone dared to talk to them like this. The golden-robed Zhong Jinliang sneered. You must be Lu Xingji. What a powerful official. Black Flame, Heaven's sovereign, wouldn't dare to talk like this. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Lan Ruo was a feminine-looking man with a neutral voice. Lung Shiqi didn't hold back at all. I was ordered to kill the demons. All the plans have been arranged. It was all because of your reckless actions that the plan failed. Ruining the Thunder Flame Dynasty's plan, ruining His Majesty's plan, even you can't bear the consequences. What nonsense are you spouting? Zhong Jinliang said angrily. We were just trying to find out the truth of the demonic miasma mountain range, but in your mouth, it became a reckless action. You really don't know anything. How can you sit in the position of one of the four chiefs? Lung Shiqi suddenly stood up with an imposing manner. Impudent. I am one of the four great stewards personally appointed by the late emperor. You're questioning the late emperor. How dare you disrespect him? Zhong Jinliang paused. He didn't expect to be accused like this. He was about to retort when the old man stood in front of Lung Shiqi and said, Zhong Jinliang, do you really have to go this far? Admit your stupidity, we'll think of another way. There's no point in arguing here. Zhong Jinliang didn't expect the old man to speak up for Lung Shiqi. Before, no matter how powerful Lung Shiqi was, he was only a young man in the unity of Heaven Realm. But now, with the old man's support, the weight was completely different. Well said. Suddenly, a strange voice came from outside, and a man in light armor descended from the sky. With us four Sky Origin Realm cultivators here, we could have killed the demons with a little preparation. But because of you two, we missed the opportunity. They recognized him as soon as he showed up. He was the commander of the Red Thunder Army, a Sky Origin Stage cultivator, Gu Hetong. What surprised Zhong Jinliang even more was that Gu Hetong was also on Lung Shiqi's side. Now, not only were he and Lan Ruo in the wrong, but they also didn't have the upper hand in the situation. They could only pinch their noses and endure. At this moment, Lan Ruo stepped forward and said, Enough. At the end of the day, we all wanted to solve the big problem of the demonic miasma mountain range as soon as possible. However, we didn't expect to be ambushed not long after we enter the mountain range. Brother Zhong and I determined that there is an extremely secretive and complicated formation in the demonic miasma mountain range. The top priority right now is to come up with a countermeasure. The demonic beasts are still wreaking havoc. If we start a panic, it will only cause more innocent people to die tragically in the mouths of the demonic beasts. His words immediately surprised everyone in the hall. The demonic miasma mountain range was filled with demonic beasts, but they had never heard of demonic beasts being able to set up a race. Everyone felt that there was a mastermind behind this matter. The atmosphere in the hall suddenly became heavy, and the conflict between Lung Shiqi and Zhong Jinliang was also shifted. Lung Shiqi didn't want internal strife, but as the leader of this great mission, he had to support Zhong Jinliang and Lan Ruo. Otherwise, he didn't know what would happen in the future. Lung Shiqi didn't expect Gu Hetong to appear and speak up for him. The Red Thunder Army would take at least 2 days to arrive, so Gu Hetong must have come early. However, the old man said, Brother, this Gu Hetong is also a member of the Elite Hall. His seniority is even higher than mine. Hearing this, Lung Shiqi understood. At the same time, the powerful impression of the Elite Hall was also imprinted in his heart. So far, he had only seen 2 members of the Elite Hall. One was a superior of the Imperial Hall of Worship, and the other was the commander of the Red Thunder Army. It could be seen that those who could join the Elite Hall were all extraordinary in status and strength. Lung Shiqi signaled, and immediately, Someone brought chairs for the several Tianyuan stage cultivators to sit on the high seats. He said, "Since it has already happened, it's useless to investigate further. Besides, you two have just fought with the big monsters, so you must know their strength and fighting style better. As the saying goes, know thyself and know thy enemy, and you will never be defeated. Can you tell us more about it?" Zhong Jinliang sat on the seat with a gloomy face and didn't mean to speak. Lan Ruo thought for a moment. Then she could only say, "The two seventh-rank big monsters are the demon sable and the heavenly winged tiger. The demon sable is very insidious. It never fights with us directly. Its demon chi is very strange. It is not only very corrosive, but also can disturb part of the chi of heaven and earth. Brother Zong and I were ambushed by the demon chi and could only use about 80% of our strength. Also, the heavenly winged tiger was very agile and could communicate with the power of the stars and moon. Under the cover of the demon chi, it was impossible to guard against. I'm ashamed, Brother Zong and I were at a disadvantage from the beginning. In the end, we had to break through the demon chi to get out of the battlefield." Zhong Jinliang, who didn't want to speak, added, "There are two other suspicious points. First, the demon chi of the two seventh-rank big monsters is very thick. It doesn't seem like they just advanced. It seems like they have at least hundreds of years of power. Secondly, there are traces of a formation in the demonic Miasma mountain range. Although the formation was deliberately hidden, Lan Ruo and I are both formation masters, so we can sense it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been ambushed by them." After the two finished speaking, the meeting hall fell into silence. From the current information, the demon sable and the heavenly winged tiger's strength far exceeded everyone's expectations. More importantly, since there was a formation hidden in the demonic Miasma mountain range, it meant that there was a mysterious spirit cultivator hiding in there. This meant that the beast tide outbreak in the demonic Miasma mountain range was man-made. Humans were always more difficult to deal with than beasts. Also, if there was someone who could secretly control two seventh-rank big monsters, then this person had to be at least in the Sky Yuan stage. It seemed like the current battle strength was not enough. Lung Shiqi frowned. He had only been in the demon-suppressing city for less than an hour, but things were getting more and more unexpected. After a while, he stood up and said, "City Lord Qi, General Gu, and all the experts, the demonic Miasma mountain range is far more dangerous than we thought. What's more terrifying is the mysterious power behind it. I'm not talented, but I need to guard the demon-suppressing city, and I will personally go to the demonic Miasma mountain range." When he said this, it attracted all kinds of strange gazes. Some did not believe him, some were suspicious, some were disdainful, and some thought he was crazy. Including the old man, there were already 3 Sky Yuan stage cultivators who were defeated. Lung Shiqi, who was in the unity of heaven and man stage, still wanted to enter the demonic Miasma mountain range. Was he crazy? Chapter 777. The old man turned around and advised, "Brother, the demonic Miasma mountain range is a dangerous place now. I know you are very powerful, but the demon sable and the heavenly winged tiger have already been alerted. If you go in recklessly, you might be in danger." "Thank you for your reminder." Lung Shiqi cupped his fist and said, "I am a person who cherishes my life. I won't do anything that will kill me. I decided to enter the demonic Miasma mountain range because I am confident and confident. Besides, I won't provoke the 2 7th-rank monsters. I just want to find out who is hiding behind them. Compared to the 7th-rank monsters, this is what worries me more. In that case, you must be careful. You need to take charge of the situation here. Take this to protect yourself," the old man said as he handed over a token engraved with thunder runes. Lung Shiqi didn't refuse. When the token was in his hand, he could feel the terrifying power of thunder contained in it. "I made this when I was free. Once it is activated, it can release endless thunder, which is equivalent to one of my attacks," the old man explained. The others heard and immediately looked at him with envy. This thing was equivalent to a one-time heaven origin stage. It could be said that no one in the unity of heaven and man realm could survive it. Lung Shiqi knew how precious this thing was, especially since he didn't have a deep relationship with the old man. He said, "I will remember your kindness. After I leave, I will ask you and City Lord Qi to arrange everything in the demon-suppressing town." The old man felt something was wrong. He said in surprise, "You mean you want to enter the demonic Miasma mountain range now?" "Yes." "No. The demon sable and the heavenly winged tiger have just been alerted. They are on high alert now. It is too dangerous." Lung Shiqi smiled. "Because of this, I think the demon sable and the heavenly winged tiger won't think anyone dares to enter the demonic Miasma mountain range now. It will increase my chances of hiding." "Fine. Whatever you say makes sense. I can't win against you." The old man shook his head and sighed. Lung Shiqi turned around and saluted Gu Hotong, who had just spoken up for him. "General Gu, please forgive me for not being able to give you a welcome dinner." Gu Hotong laughed. "Haha, what's there to welcome? I see that Brother Liu is really brave and has a heroic spirit. If you're tired of staying in the Dark Thunder Guards in the future, you are welcome to join my Crimson Thunder Army. When I have time, I will definitely pay a visit to Marshal Gu. Everyone, I will be back soon." With that, Lung Shiqi turned into a phantom and disappeared from the meeting hall. Zhongzhen Liang transmitted to Lan Ra. He said we were impulsive, and he doesn't know what's good for him. I think he won't be coming back. Brother Zong, you've been in seclusion all year round, so you might not have heard much about this Lu Xingji. This lad has created miracles time and time again, and even contradicted Six Directions' spirit supremacy. Isn't he still alive and well? This person cannot be underestimated. If he can bring back information, I will acknowledge him. But if he goes in and doesn't find anything, he might just be playing to the gallery. At that time, don't blame me for not giving him face." Zhongzhen Liang was still a little unconvinced. After all, Lung Shiqi had scolded them in front of their faces, which was a total loss of face. Lan Ruo was also a little helpless. Although they were of noble status and stood among the strong, in the end, they were still dependent on the Thunderblaze dynasty. Lung Shiqi was in the limelight, and was also a popular person by His Majesty's side. In the future, his achievements might not be lower than theirs, so there was no need for them to be so hostile. After Lung Shiqi left, he left the demon-suppressing town with a ghostly speed and came to the edge of the Miasma mountain range. Standing here, Lung Shiqi felt a strange aura. He had entered the Miasma mountain range 3 times in the past. The Miasma mountain range was so named because of the miasma everywhere. But now, Lung Shiqi found that there were a few more types of energy in the miasma. Sure enough, there's something strange, Lung Shiqi thought. He was not in a hurry to enter the Miasma mountain range. Instead, he raised his finger and summoned a small insect. It was the Gu King. The Gu King had advanced to the 6th level. Since Lung Shiqi became one of the 4 great chiefs, he had gathered countless resources. Of course, these resources would not be wasted. Especially when he was in seclusion, he always prepared a large amount of resources for the Gu King and the 4-legged metal-swallowing beast. Now, these 2 pets had successfully advanced to the 6th level. It was a pity that his 2 pets were not battle-type. The 4-legged metal-swallowing beast could not be used for anything other than treasure hunting. Fortunately, the Gu King's ability to conceal itself had become stronger after its advancement. It also had the ability to divide itself. Its body could split into many small Gu worms, which had many wonderful uses. The Gu King landed on Lung Shiqi's shoulder and breathed out a faint mist. Lung Shiqi's aura was immediately covered. Even a Sky Origin Stage expert would not be able to sense him. Then, he made a few seals on himself. His figure became fainter and fainter until it disappeared. Thus, Lung Shiqi went deep into the demonic Miasma mountain range. When he arrived at the periphery of the demonic Miasma mountain range, he quickly discovered that there were not many demonic beasts in the periphery. Perhaps some of them had already died at the hands of the spirit cultivators in the demon-suppressing city. He did not stay in the periphery for long and went straight into the inner area. As soon as he entered the inner area, Lung Shichi's footsteps paused. The miasma in the inner area was much higher than the outer area. However, this amount of miasma posed no threat to Lung Shichi. In fact, the miasma could not even get close to his body. However, Lung Shichi did something strange. He actually opened his mouth and inhaled a large mouthful of miasma. When the miasma entered his body, Lung Shichi did not deliberately block it. Instead, he allowed the miasma to flow through his body. He closed his eyes slightly, as if he was sensing something. This was because after he entered the inner area, his sea of consciousness became somewhat restless. The sky of his sea of consciousness flashed with green light, which looked extremely demonic. Lung Shichi knew very well that the green light was demonic power. When he first condensed the spiritual fantasy world, 9 Leaves' heavenly demonic soul crystal had been integrated into the spiritual fantasy world. Therefore, Lung Shichi's body had always been hiding some demonic power. Now that he was deep in the demonic miasma mountain range, such an unforeseen event had occurred in his sea of consciousness. This meant that the demonic power in the miasma here was far stronger than it was a few years ago. Therefore, Lung Shichi stopped and took the initiative to absorb some of the miasma. When the miasma entered his body, it immediately triggered his demonic power. Lung Shichi's heart stirred and continued to absorb the miasma. After more than an hour, his eyes had a bit of green light, and his body had automatically activated the wild, demonic blood beast body. However, unlike before, his current state was more beast-like. He looked ferocious and terrifying, like a ferocious beast. He felt his current state and seemed to have thought of something. He had already vaguely guessed why the Chaos Demon Black Marten and the Star Moon Heavenly Winged Tiger were so strong. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. A half-demon. Chapter 778. Lung Shichi was startled when he heard the voice nearby. He discovered that although he had concealed his presence, he had absorbed a large amount of demonic aura and revealed himself. When he heard the words, half-demon, various thoughts flashed through his mind. He had heard of half-demons before. Half-demons were the offspring of a human and a demon. Under normal circumstances, a demonic beast that could do this must be a 7th-rank great demonic beast or even more powerful. But this was only a possibility. High-level great demons had a very low chance of producing offspring. This was the price of being born with great power. It was extremely difficult for them to produce offspring, not to mention a human and demon union. The probability was so small that it was almost negligible. Of course, there was still a sliver of a possibility. It was a half-demon. Half-demons that had both human and demon bloodlines were seen as anomalies. Both humans and demon beasts felt that half-demons were extremely lowly. So even if a half-demon appeared, they would have been killed long ago. Thus, the number of half-demons on the Starfall continent was probably even less than rank 7 great demons. Lung Shichi's current appearance was very similar to the legendary half-demon. He had a human body, but had 4 arms and a tail. He was emitting dense demonic aura and spirit force. No matter how one looked at him, he was a half-demon. Who is it? Lung Shichi sensed that there was a rank 6 demon beast not far from him. However, he still shouted in alarm. A strange demon beast walked out of the miasma. It had 4 limbs on the ground, and its back was arched like shrimp. There were sharp spikes that were half a meter long on its back. Its body was covered in a pale green liquid. As it walked, a drop of viscous liquid flowed behind it. Wherever the liquid touched, large areas of the ground would be corroded. Lung Shichi immediately recognized this demon beast, Ridgeback Venom Beast. The Ridgeback Venom Beast stared at Lung Shichi with its cold vertical pupils and spoke in human language. You really are a half-demon. No wonder the formation didn't detect your aura. A rank 6 half-demon? It seems your bloodline isn't low. Greed flashed in the Venom Ridgeback beast's eyes as it spoke. Lung Shichi changed his tone and said coldly, I don't care who you are. Watch your mouth. The Ridgeback Venom beast immediately revealed a sinister, killing intent. You're courting death. Immediately, the venom around its body swirled and condensed into sharp blades that pierced straight at Suke. Each of the sharp blades tore through the miasma, producing ear-piercing sounds. The rare poison elemental spiritual energy in the world was all mobilized, forming a large poisonous cloud in the surroundings. Lung Shichi quickly formed a seal with his arms behind his back. Suddenly, a demonic wind rose from all directions, whistling through the air. The surrounding miasma and everything else was swept into the air, including the poisonous cloud of the venom beast on his back. He suddenly punched out with his other two arms, and the phantom of an evil beast appeared behind him. Immediately, a violent and terrifying power erupted in the air. With a punch, the poisonous blade of the venom beast on his back was instantly shattered into pieces with the power of a mountain. The power of the fist shattered the ground, and it seemed like it was going to bury the Venom Ridgeback beast as well. What the hell? The Venom Ridgeback beast was stunned. It was a rank 6 monster. In this demonic miasma mountain range, other than the 2 rank 7 monsters, no one could suppress it. But now a half-monster that came out of nowhere defeated it in 2 moves. What kind of strength was this? However, Lung Shichi stopped at this time. His purpose was to establish his dominance, not to kill the Venom Ridgeback beast. Moreover, if he really killed this monster, his trip to the demonic miasma mountain range would end early. If I'm not wrong, you're the Venom Ridgeback beast, right? Lung Shichi said with a cold gaze. The Venom Ridgeback beast changed its attitude and crawled over with its head lowered. In the world of monsters, the concept of the strong being respected was deeply ingrained in its bones. It whispered, that's right. I heard that there are more than 1 rank 7 monster in the demonic miasma mountain range. Take me to see them. Lung Shichi stated his request. Well, the Venom Ridgeback beast rolled its eyes. It did not know what Lung Shichi's purpose was, but it thought that if it brought him to the demon mink and the heavenly winged tiger, Lung Shichi's life would be at stake. Why? Are you in a difficult position? Lung Shichi's murderous intent exploded. The Venom Ridgeback beast was startled again. It was not good at speed. Now that its strength was suppressed by Lung Shichi, it might really die here if it did not behave. It immediately nodded and said, it's not difficult, it's not difficult. It's just that the 2 great ancestors won't see you easily. I'll take you to them at most. As for whether they see them or not, it's not up to me. Hurry up and lead the way. Yes, Lung Shichi followed the Venom Ridgeback beast all the way into the demonic miasma mountain range. Since he was accidentally discovered, he was mistaken for a half-monster. Therefore, he temporarily changed his method of concealment and detection and turned to lurking among the monsters as a half-monster. He had been with Nine Leave for a long time and knew that the communication between monsters was much simpler than between humans. If you were strong, you would be the boss. Whoever had the bigger fist had the greater right to speak. It was precisely because he knew this that he used his powerful strength to subdue the Venom Ridgeback beast and make it obedient. Even if the Venom Ridgeback beast held a grudge, it did not dare to show in front of him. After a long time, the Venom Ridgeback beast brought Lung Shichi to a dilapidated place. It was full of potholes and devastation, as if it had been bombed by countless bombs. In fact, it was almost the same, because this was the place where Nine Leave self-destructed. When Lung Shichi came here, he clearly felt the aura of many 6th-rank monsters locking onto him. Roughly speaking, there were no less than 20 of them. When did the demonic miasma mountain range have so many 6th-rank monsters? Lung Shichi was surprised, but on second thought, if 2 7th-rank monsters could be born at the same time, it was not surprising that there were more 6th-rank monsters. The venom ridgeback beast let out a strange roar, and then the miasma in the sky stirred violently, revealing a huge tiger head. The tiger head stared at Lung Shichi without any emotion. A sixth-rank half-monster that can suppress little ridgeback is really rare. Tell me your origin. If there is a single lie, your soul will be destroyed. Lung Shichi raised his head and said in a neither servile nor overbearing tone, "My name is Xieqiu, a half-monster that has been hiding in the shadows for decades. Recently, I heard that the demonic Miasma Mountain Range's strength has increased greatly and caused a beast tide, and there are even 7th-rank monsters guarding it, so I came to join you." Xieqiu, the tiger head said, "No one can prove what you said. How can I believe you?" Lung Shichi smiled. "Very simple. I am willing to become a pawn of the demonic Miasma Mountain Range and break the gate of monster-suppressing city. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.